Welcome to Pop By Culture. This is Marvelous Monday, and tonight we are talking Captain America, the First Avenger.
I know this neighborhood. I got beat up in that alley.
You just don't know when to give up.
I could do this all day.
Do you have something against running away?
You start running, they'll never let you stop. You really gonna do this now?
There are men laying down their lives. I got no right to do any less than them.
I can offer you a chance.
Our goal is to create a new breed of super soldier.
When you brought a 90-pound asthmatic onto my army base, I let it slide.
I am looking for qualities beyond the physical.
You win wars with guts.
Grenade! Everybody down!
Is this a test?
He's still skinny.
Whatever happens, stay who you are. Not just a soldier, but a good man.
Is it too late to go to the bathroom?
You actually did it.
Who the hell are you?
The first of many.
HYDRA is the Nazi Deep Science Division, led by Johann Schmidt.
He thinks he's a god, and he's willing to blow up half the world to prove it.
You're not even close to this technology.
I asked for an army, and all I got was you.
Congratulations. You just got promoted.
Mr. Stark?
I had some ideas about the uniform.
You're gonna get so many girls.
Captain, we are much alike. I don't know if I can do this.
You won't be alone.
What made you so special?
Nothing. I'm just a kid from Brooklyn.
Hey!
You're late.
Nobody's perfect.
Before we start breaking down this film, I kind of want to go to each of my team here, and I want to hear from you guys about when was the last time you watched this prior to revisiting it, and what were your original thoughts on the film, and what do you think now after coming back to watch it again? So I'm going to start off with Nadia, because you sent a fun text to the group earlier in the week where you pretty much said, I remember the first time I watched this, and I wasn't impressed.
I wasn't. I thought I have been saying for all week, I'm pretty sure if I remember right, Thor was better than Captain America First Avenger, which I know is the hot topic for a lot of people. I wasn't very impressed with the first one. When with this one when I first saw it. Yes.
Right.
I'm all over the board.
It's okay, we all are. If the audience hasn't figured that out yet, then surprise. Yeah.
And I cannot tell you the last time I saw it other than the rewatch for this. And I'll tell you this whole week up until the time I saw it, I was like, oh, to watch this stupid freaking Captain America movie for Josh. And I watched it, and holy cow, I think I liked it. I more so on the rewatch than when I first saw it. It's on a lower budget, which by the way still looks fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
There's character development, there's a great story. I think the humor is well balanced, because I think nowadays Marvel leans too much into the slapstick humor with their movies. And I can't remember the last time I've seen a pro-America Marvel movie at all.
We do have Dolan and Shield here, and both of you guys have a military background, so I think you're going to have a lot of really good insights to bring to the table. But I kind of want to touch on you two. What were your initial thoughts that you remember of the film versus revisiting it?
Okay, so I saw the movie when it originally came out in theaters, and I thought it was pretty good. I really liked the first half. The second half was all right, but it started kind of getting a little too comic booky for me, especially considered to the considering how well done the first half was.
Mm.
Uh, it really, I'm older, so I remember like my grandparents and stuff and the stories they told me, and it
Mm,
really harkened back to that World War II era. And I thought it did a good job of capturing that in the movie, like
yeah,
the buzz about it and the energy that was with the war, and how much recruiting and I guess air quotes propaganda there was, and how things were set up, and the importance of war bonds and all that. And then the second part of the movie was very comic booky. You had like really cool like jet fighters and guys with weird laser guns and stuff, and so it went from more of a character driven story to a action sci-fi kind of thing, comic booky thing. So that was the impression I got when I went out of the theater. Was it was pretty good, but I still thought that the original Iron Man was better because of the way that the movies had come out chronologically. And
right.
then when I saw it yesterday, I was like, man, this movie is so much better than anything that they have done since Endgame, really. Um, and the the kind of how the characters are, and the values that they
Mm,
espouse and that they project onto the screen are believable and genuine. The characters are strong, diverse. Um, it has a strong female character in it that uses her abilities. She's not beating up 300-pound dudes. She's shooting a gun accurately. She's trained. She's smart, but she's still maybe not getting treated as an equal, you know?
right.
So it acknowledges those problems from that era without beating you over the head with it or having to tear down other characters to make her strong. So I really enjoyed that about the movie. So the second viewing was much better for me.
Absolutely. I will agree real quick before I pass to Drew. I do think this was a film that I've learned to appreciate more the more that I watch it. And we'll get into some topics too that I think Shield, you and Nadia may not be completely aware of, that for me and Drew might make this such a good film because of its ties to the actual history of comics. But Drew, it seems like Shieldwall may have been saying that comic booky may not be such a great thing. Are those fighting words for you?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, he's got a point. Like I was going to piggyback off what he said. Like we get back to talk about the act structure of this. Act 1 is good. I really enjoyed it. They altered the origin a little bit. I liked it. Act 2 is flipping great. I love Act 2 of this when we get into when he's saving the Howling Commandos and all of them. Act 3, yeah, that's where it falls apart for me. That's where I'm just like, well, we'll talk about it. We'll get
Drew,
to that.
I'm completely in agreement with you that Act 1 was good. Act 2 was excellent. Act 3 definitely left a lot to be desired. I think there are other elements that play a factor into that, and it was something that kind of plagued Marvel movies in general. But for those of you that haven't seen the film, or maybe you haven't watched it in a while and you need a refresher, so the general plot synopsis of this movie, it's 1941. The world's in the throes of World War II. You've got Steve Rogers. He wants to do his part to join the American troops and join the armed forces to fight against the Nazis. He's not able to. He's getting rejected. A lot of it has to do with his physicality, his health. He's the scrawny little guy. There's a scene in the movie where he gets rejected, and they tell him, like, dude, you get rejected, because of your asthma alone. But he keeps trying and trying and trying until he kind of comes across a doctor. And this is kind of where we get into the comic book elements of this movie. But he comes across a doctor with an experiment to make the ideal soldier, a super soldier. And then he gets part of this super soldier program, becomes Captain America, and kind of gets intertwined with the likes of Peggy Carter, goes against a sect of the Nazis called HYDRA. and kind of stems from there. But I really want to focus on the first act of this film, and it's kind of like the skinny Steve act, and that's what I'm going to refer to it as. But there's so much to me that when you come to do a Captain America movie, the one thing you have to get right, you absolutely have to get right, or you're going to have a failed film, is Captain America as a character, Steve Rogers as a character. And that's what this movie just nails. So when we see him, we see his desperation to jump in, become a soldier. He keeps trying. We see him confronting bullies, which kind of becomes a theme for this film. There's a guy in a movie theater that's kind of chastising and, catcalling the fact that they're having, pro-war bonds or support your troops, sign up. And he confronts that guy. So he's got this little bitty guy with a huge heart that's like, I don't care who it is or what I'm facing. I'm going to stand up for what's right because it's the right thing to do.
War continues to ravage Europe, but help is on the way. Every able-bodied young man is lining up to serve his country. Even little Timmy is doing his part, collecting scrap metal. Nice work, Timmy.
Who cares? Play the movie already.
Hey, you want to show some respect?
Meanwhile, overseas, our brave boys are showing the Axis powers that the price of freedom is never too high.
Let's go. Get on with it. Hey, just start the cartoon.
Hey, you want to shut up?
Together with Allied forces, we'll face any threat, no matter the size.
You just don't know when to give up, do you?
I can do this all day.
Hey, pick on somebody your own size. Sometimes I think you like getting punched.
I had him on the ropes.
How many times is this? Oh, you're from Paramus now. You know it's illegal to lie on the enlistment form. And seriously, Jersey?
You get your orders?
The 107th. Sergeant James Barnes, shipping out for England first thing tomorrow.
I should be going.
Come on, man. Why last night? Gotta get you cleaned up.
Why? Where we going?
Future.
So I kind of want to talk to you guys about this approach, and do you think that, or I would say, do you share the same thoughts as I do, that this was kind of the crux of what was going to need to happen to make this film work? And I'll pass it to Dolan first, Drew, and then we'll kind of partner with Nadia and Shield.
Yeah, I agree. Nailing down Steve first is the priority, and his motivations, and for everyone, not just a significant number of people, but for everyone to get on board with Steve, how everyone could believe, yeah, this really is the embodiment of like who Captain America should be, and they nailed it perfectly. And Dr. Reinstein, when he talks to him, he nails it perfectly who he is and who the ideal candidate is. But I will say in Act 1, my one strike in Act 1 for this is the lack of mentioning or showing Nazis and swastikas in this. It's like, I can't recall or remember what directive came down at Disney or Marvel at the time, but were they ashamed of showing it? I don't get it. I mean, if you're touching upon World War II, I understand Hydra is a thing, but it's Nazi. I mean, they are the ultimate evil. I don't understand. I mean, Steven Spielberg and all of them, they weren't afraid of shying away from that. I mean, everyone could get on board with knowing, yes, this is the ultimate evil. Everyone can understand this is the ultimate evil. You have the ultimate good guy right here. This is perfect. Everyone should be able to jump on board with this. And because I can remember back in the 90s watching The Rocketeer when that came out. And there's I don't know if you remember, there's a great scene where Cliff Secord is watching an animated feature of like these Nazi soldiers with rocket packs going to America, burning the American flag, replacing it with the Nazi swastika flag. I remember as a kid thinking, oh my God, this is terrifying. This is creepy. And like, I really feel like they could have really left a solid, firm like fear in kids. Like, oh my God, these people were evil. But maybe that's too far. I don't know.
I won't say it's too far. I think I shared a lot of that sentiment, just as far as the villain goes in general. But I will, and we'll kind of delve into Schmidt / Red Skull, Hydra, and the villains a little more in depth when we kind of discuss Act 2, because I really want to cover a good chunk of that. But no, I do agree with you. It seemed weird that they didn't have the Nazi presence. One, to kind of reflect, hey, this was the real world, but two, also like, Schmidt is supposed to be worse than Hitler. He like the concept is that he's even crazier and he's even more evil, and not having that base of showing the Nazis to kind of stand on that definitely did this film a disservice. But Nadia, what were your thoughts just as far as characterization coming in? Because you have less of a comic book background than Drew and I do. Did you come in with a preconceived notion of how they needed to approach the character of Captain America, or were you kind of like open?
I've read a couple Captain America comics because, again, I live with the Marvel Encyclopedia, and Captain America is my husband's like #1 go-to, right? I think I even for an anniversary got him a reprint comic of Captain America punching Hitler on the cover.
Oh, nice. Yep.
So he has that framed. But from what was interesting to me was the casting of Chris Evans. I don't think if everybody remembers that nobody actually wanted him to play Captain America when it was announced. Obviously, it goes through all this, right? Every time somebody's announced for a major part in the MCU, at least in the first 10 years, everybody, huffs and puffs. I mean, everybody had a problem with Paul Rudd being Ant-Man. Everybody had a problem with Chris Pratt playing Star-Lord. But I thought it was very interesting because I, at the time, only knew Chris Evans from
not another teen movie.
Not another teen
Fantastic
movie, but
Four.
Fantastic Four, but the Scott Pilgrim. Or maybe I'm confusing it with it. But I thought it was interesting because nobody would have expected him to play Captain America from his previous roles. I mean, you've got Captain America is such a black and white character, and I don't mean this in the sense that he doesn't have depth, but he does what is right no matter what, right? Whatever he believes is right, that's what he does. And it's very interesting to me to cast Chris Evans because I don't feel Chris Evans, well, at least now through interviews and stuff, is that type of person, allegedly. So when I went in, I was like, oh, this is going to be just a dumb movie about a guy who's just going to put on a suit. And I was blown away, especially with the second rewatch, of how much depth he gave Steve Rogers, especially when he plays the CGI. Like, even though the CGI is a little bit bad with him playing scrawny, the way he portrays body movement, just how he vocalizes dialogue and stuff, totally removed the fact that he was CGI'd into this scrawny little body. I truly believed he was Steve Rogers when I was watching this movie, from the little bit of knowledge I had from this small amount of comics I've read.
Yeah. Real quick on this, on the fact that they cast Chris Evans, they had actually offered him the role and he turned it down, and they came back and were like, no, we think you're the right guy for the role, and he turned it down again, to the point that they started looking to hire someone else and were doing more auditions to try to cast somebody, and they couldn't find anyone that they were happy with. So they came back again and were like, listen, you're the guy for this role. What do we need to do to get you in this? And he had talked about how he didn't feel like he was right for this role because he didn't feel like he was that person. He was like, I don't feel like I'm that kind of guy to step in and play this role. Like, I think it's better than I am. So hearing you say that, knowing that was kind of a real world scenario, and his own perception of the character versus him is an interesting take. But
well, didn't they also they were looking at who plays Bucky as a casting choice as well, but they decided that he would have been better off as Bucky, which works out to me. 100%.
Oh, agreed. Yeah, Sebastian Stan. He auditioned. I think he did one audition for Cap, and then they were like, we might actually want you for this other role, and kind of let him. And I can't think of
he's a short guy. He's a short guy. and it's
I
ended up
mean,
in a lot of apple crates.
Yeah.
Well, hey,
He would have
hey,
been good
hey.
Wolverine at the time then, you know.
Listen. Tom Cruise has gotten by all these years. He's fine. He's fine. Okay. Shield, kind of, I want to get your thoughts real quick on just the tone of Captain America and how critical it was to get him right for this film, first and foremost.
Yeah, exactly. To just kind of springboard off of it a little bit that Nadia was saying about the CGI. When I first saw it, I didn't. I mean, obviously knew that they did it somehow with Chris Evans' head on that guy's body, but I couldn't tell. It didn't take me out of the story whatsoever. It was
Right.
100% believable. It wasn't like, I don't know, a certain movie that came out where it was obviously a dude in the suit and then a horribly CGI'd woman's head was put on the body.
Oh.
Yeah. Black Widow. And yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about She-Hulk.
Oh no, I was talking about Black Widow with what's his name?
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Taskmaster.
Taskmaster.
Yeah.
Right. It was obviously a dude in the suit, and then they just made it a woman's head, and you're like, "What are you doing?"
We
Anyway,
don't mention that in my house. We don't mention that.
So they got that right, which was important, but also they got the character right with, and I think maybe Chris Evans not wanting to play, not thinking he was good enough to be the character is why he was good enough.
Yep.
Just like that seems like something that Captain America, Steve Rogers would say is, you know, the doctor asked him at one point, why did you try so many times to get an army? Do you want to kill Nazis? And he says, no, I don't want to kill anybody, but I don't like a bully. That right there is a huge building block of his character. It's like a big foundation stone. Boom. Like, okay, I get what this guy is doing. He's constantly being bullied. Because he's not strong enough. He's not fast enough. He's not, you know, he's got medical conditions, and he has a friend that is in good shape. Sebastian Stan's character, Bucky.
Yep.
And he's not liked by women. And I can't tell you how many guys probably really latched onto that and was like, yeah, you know, I get ignored by women too all the time or whatever. Even though, because they can't see inside me because I'm, you know, so I think a lot of people really connect with that, probably both men and women. And that transcends, you know, countries and culture, that kind of feeling. Also, so the values that he stands for, anybody from anywhere can watch that and get it. Oh, okay, this is what he wants to do. And on a side note, being rated 4F, which meant you weren't able to serve, was hugely, that was a big deal back then. And literally there were people that, you know, killed themselves because they were 4F and they couldn't go, because they couldn't face the shame of not being able to go, because there would be people in the like in the community that was put a lot of pressure on people to sign up. And if you didn't, it was socially unacceptable in most cases. So that aspect really made his character believable. It made his character endearing. It made his character heroic, because he would, like that guy in the theater, you know, he's watching on screen footage of wounded soldiers and he's thinking, why can't I go? Why, you know, I can't go. I feel so bad. And this guy in front of him is like, just bring on the cartoon. And so he stands up to this guy, even though he knows that this guy's bigger than him, stronger than him. And he goes, and not only that, it's like a meet me out in the alleyway kind of thing. They don't really go into it, but you obviously know what's happened. You know, it's kind of like in school, meet me by the bike racks, and you had to show up, or it was, you know, or you weren't honorable if you didn't, and people would say things. Well, he was such an honorable person. He met this guy that he knew he was going to get beat in the alleyway and took his beating anyway. And that's when he says that line, I can do this all day. And that comes back to Endgame.
Yeah.
All the way.
That becomes like a through line for Captain America kind of throughout the entirety of the MCU. But it's even a through line in this film. I want to kind of touch on two things that we were kind of brought up. One is going back to Chris Evans' casting and Shield, what you said about not feeling like he's right for the role and that kind of making him right for the role. there's something that I didn't fully pick up on, and I've realized this line was there, and I've always kind of acknowledged that it's there, but I've never really thought about it. But when Steve meets up with Bucky and they're gonna go out dancing with the girls, and he's gonna go try again to enlist in the military, and Bucky's like, what are you doing, man? Like, what are you doing? And Steve has the line of like, people out there laying down their lives for our country, and I have every right to be doing the same, and he kind of gives this speech that's kind of empowering and uplifting, but Bucky shoots right back at him with, yeah, and you don't have anything to prove, pretty much saying like, I know you're trying to prove a point, and I know you're trying to prove your worth and your value, but you don't have to. But for whatever reason, the first time watching this, I thought about that line and thought about every time I've come into this movie looking at Steve Rogers as Captain America, even while he's skinny, scrawny Steve. Like, I knew he was going to become Captain America. I knew he was going to become this like forceful figure. And at this point in their life, he was not that person. Like, if there is a quote unquote Captain America in this world of these two guys, it would have been Bucky. Like, Bucky was the fit one. Bucky was the one that had everything. But so it was just a really interesting dynamic that I didn't think about. But there is this running through line of having something to prove that kind of runs through this film. We see it in the first act as him as scrawny Steve. We're going to see it in the second act, and we'll talk about that in a bit, once he actually becomes Captain America. And then again, at the very end, like he has to prove himself, his worth, and what he can bring to the table.
Right, exactly. It speaks to his value, his core value of not giving up, of persevering, of wanting to be better, of wanting to be part of his community. It wasn't about him, it was about other people. I mean, some of it was about him, as far as not wanting to not participate in what everybody else was doing to defend his country. And that's something that I do deeply believe in, is that everybody should have the opportunity to defend their country if they want to.
And I agree with that. And like the one thing that I remember as a kid, when I was like 7 or 8 years old, like when I first exposed to Captain America, it was like the 1960s like Marvel Action Hour cartoons, like the Comics in Motion cartoons. Like the first line, when they enter Steve Rogers, too puny to be accepted by the military, but willing to accept death for his nation. It's like, that's Steve right there. And it's like, I knew that as a kid. It's been a burn in the back of my brain. It's like, if they can nail that down, willing to accept death for his nation regardless, and they do. They get that down pat.
They absolutely do. There's a scene. Oh, sorry, Nadia, did you want to jump in with something?
I think it's very interesting because we're all roughly around millennial or older in this age range. So we grew up in some generations where it was a proud thing to serve for your country, to enlist and protect. And we're now getting into generations where it's more anti-military, not so much anti-funding the military, but anti just enlisting and being proud of your country. So I'm curious to see in 5 to 10 years if this movie would hit the same for the next couple of generations as it does for us, because we all grew up where somebody in our family served or served yourself, and it was a proud thing to have somebody in uniform in your family.
Yeah, I mean,
right. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm sure when Shieldwall was in, when I was in, especially in the early 2000s, recruitment was at a record high. The delayed entry program, I had to wait 6 months before I can go into basic training. So many people were signing up. It was ridiculous. But now, currently, I mean, they're at a recruitment shortfall. Marines, Army, like they're having a hard time recruiting. I mean, so it's all cyclical. This is really reminiscent of like the Vietnam era. Where there was a big anti-war, anti-military stance, and I'm fairly certain within probably 5-10 years it'll come back around again. It just comes in cycles.
Yeah, I'll mention this too. We're talking about the change in how society thinks, and we're talking about how when previously in years past, being a part of the military, even being a police officer, was kind of viewed as a respectable thing, and now it's becoming this taboo topic. But we've got our mutual friend Max, and I'll share this because he posted it on social media. But he has a dating profile, and one of his pictures is him
A
in
Marine.
uniform from when he served as a Marine. And he's had people comment on the picture and just put degenerate. Like that's the mindset of a growing number of people, and it's wild that we've lost this reverence for people that are willing to serve and sacrifice and lay down their lives for our country. And it's such a strange time to be alive and witness this.
It's so weird. I was in junior ROTC, and I was going to go in Air Force, but I had a lot of pressure from friends to not, because at that time it was starting to be more of a, you don't really want to go in the military, you don't really want to be pro-military, pro-American and stuff. And I think it's crazy, especially as a first generation here of an immigrant who worked his ass off to provide for his family. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to curse.
You can cuss, it's fine.
Okay.
we cuss around here. What are you talking about?
Okay. I don't know where I was going with that. I'm done.
Yeah.
I think you were going with your father was first generation immigrant.
Oh yeah, first generation
from another country, and
he's very pro-American. My dad is super pro-American, American dream, the whole thing. If he was into superhero films, this probably would be his favorite, or Winter Soldier, one of the two. But yeah, it's just interesting to me because I have shown this film to younger siblings that I've had who are in high school and younger, and they don't get it. They don't get the pro-American feel to it. They don't get why somebody would want to serve in the military or sacrifice themselves for a nation. And I hope, Drew, you're right, that we're going to circle back around to be a little bit more pro-American, celebrating these people who've put their lives on the line for us.
This is my personal take on that. This is just me spitballing here, but because I'm old and I don't know what younger people think, but my impression is that you have to be proud of your country and feel like it's actually worth defending in order to go do that. And I think a lot of young people, through different mechanisms, school, social media, whatever, don't feel like it's worthwhile doing anymore, which is really sad. But it does go in waves, and people will like the military when it's more needed.
Mm-hmm.
Same with police. It's all defund the police until someone's breaking into your house at 3 a.m.
Yep.
And then it's like, where are the cops at? So I do think it's cyclical, but I also think it's a little bit cultural that we're going through. And we've, sometimes you have to go through those struggles to come out on the other end.
Just like Steven Rogers.
Right. Just like Steve Rogers.
Steve Rogers. Why do I keep calling him Steven? I have no idea why.
Steven. Yeah, you sound like his mother, Steven.
Steven Rogers, clean your room. We will, because there's a good segue here back into Steve, but I do want to comment just real quick. Drew has talked about this before in terms of comics and how we don't seem to get a lot of substance in comics these days, and that it's because the writers have not really experienced anything tragic or experience loss. Like for a lot of these people that are moving into the working world now, or writing, or professional careers, whatever it might be, like some of the toughest stuff that they face is things like, my favorite show got canceled, or
we are a lazy society. We don't struggle for anything. We get our groceries delivered, everything's sent to our house. We don't struggle for anything. Everything is convenience. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Josh, but I 100% believe that and especially modern day comics and modern day movies, these people don't know what suffering is. They've never experienced loss to the capacity of some generations, and it's definitely shown through their work because they just brush it off as it's just some minute thing.
Drew, what was the line you mentioned from the show, the 1960s cartoon,
the Marvel Action Hour animated movie, TV series? It was inner Steve Rogers. The narrator's like, inner Steve Rogers, too puny to be accepted by the military, but willing to accept death for his nation.
Yeah. So for me, I've never seen that, but you saying that for me is kind of what resonates, and I think one of the things that we get that's great is we get so many moments in this movie where you get to see his character and get to see how much he's willing to give of himself. But there's one scene in particular where we get to see how much he's willing to sacrifice.
Look at that. He's making me cry.
I am looking for qualities beyond the physical.
Do you know how long it took to set up this project? All the groveling I had to do in front of Senator What's-His-Name's committees?
Yes, I know. I am well aware of your efforts.
Then throw me a bone. Hodge passed every test we gave him. He's big, he's fast, he obeys orders, he's a soldier.
He's a bully.
You don't win wars with niceness, Doctor. You win wars with guts.
Grenade!
Move! Get away! Get back!
The dummy grenade. All clear. Back in formation.
Is this a test?
He's still skinny.
And it's after he's been accepted as a potential for the super soldier program, and he's kind of going through basic training, and we get to see him like he can't keep up with these guys physically. He does have intelligence that he utilizes to his advantage in certain scenes, but there's a point where you've got Dr. Erskine who is ready to move forward with Steve, and then you have Colonel Phillips, played by Tommy Lee Jones, that is like absolutely not, like, I can't believe you're even considering him. He's not the guy. We need this.
He's making me cry.
Yeah, let's run. He's making me. That's right. I love that line. He's making me cry. But he's running through the stuff, and then he tries to prove a point that like we need a guy that's got guts. So he throws this grenade out and yells "grenade," and everyone bolts and gets to safety, which is the smart thing to do. Like if I saw a grenade, I'm gonna try to take cover. But the first instinct that Steve has is jump on the grenade to protect everyone else. And I'm like, I remember watching, I'm getting chill bumps now. I remember watching this for the first time, and I remember getting chill bumps. And I love, if anything ever resonates with me or hits me on an emotional level, it's when people make sacrifices or are willing to sacrifice themselves. And it wasn't like a big heroic moment. It wasn't built up to be that, but you saw right there, I will do anything to do what's right and protect others that I need to do. And for me, that was the moment that I was like, I'm on board. Let's see where this goes.
And yeah, Peggy was giving him bedroom eyes. So you can be a scrawny guy. As long as you got guffins, you'll still get the girl. So
and that is almost I think that's my favorite scene in the movie. Also, shout out to Tommy Lee Jones for playing Colonel Chester Phillips. He's basically like a hard-nosed colonel that you'll really run into. You know, I know you got something to say, but don't say it here because I don't want to hear it. You know, and you know, do push-ups till I get tired, kind of stuff. But that moment, now I think that she was starting to get respect for him previous to that, because of there's a scene where they're all running and they get to the halfway point and everyone's like puking and stuff. And the drill instructor says, if you can get this flag down off this pole, you can ride back in the Jeep with Agent Carter. And because, you know, they're leading the run in a Jeep and she's with them for some reason. And all these guys are trying to climb the pole and they basically give up. You know, they're there for a few minutes, and then the drill sergeant's like, no one's gotten that flag in 17 years. And so this is like 1943 or whatever. So it's a while ago. But Steve Rogers, he doesn't even try to climb it. He just waits till everyone's done and they get back in formation. And they're like, Rogers, form up. And he walks over and he pulls this pin out of the bottom of the flagpole, and it'll actually make it cantilever down and fall on the ground, and he can take the flag off of it. So he hands it to him and jumps in. That right there, I think, is when she really started to be like, okay, there's something more to this guy. And then Nadia is correct. The minute he jumped on that grenade, you can see that's when I think she fell in love with him. Kind of
agreed.
like the seeds were planted, not like hardcore, but the seeds were planted.
Everything else is just extra.
Yeah, it does help if you go in through a supersoldier treatment and come out as a Jack 6.
Yeah, I'm sure that helps. I'm sure that helps.
That doesn't hurt your case at all. But
We will
absolutely
get
get
to that in a
everything
second.
else. Oh my god! Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But
it's like, what
but the core foundation of him being that kind of guy you admire is there.
Yep.
Yes.
But before we kind of move into that second act and when he becomes Captain America, I do want to kind of talk about these 4 satellites of characters that are kind of moving around him real quick. We do have Bucky, we have Colonel Phillips, we have Dr. Erskine, and we have Peggy. And you know, you mentioned Tommy Lee Jones, and honestly, all 4 of these guys really kind of delivered in a way that just helped elevate this film. And I do think Tommy Lee Jones.
Josh, one of them is a woman.
What did I say these?
He
men?
meant guys in parentheses.
Or did I say guys?
You said guys.
I mean, you guys. Come on,
Yeah,
you guys. Come on.
Wild and crazy guys.
Yeah, like Sloth. Hey, you guys.
Hey, you guys.
You guys.
Yeah.
God, now I'm. So you've got all of these they thems, right? But no,
I'm sorry.
you're good. I mean, they do a lot to kind of like do some heavy lifting here, because it's one of those situations where, if you know, we already talked about how Chris Evans kind of stepped in this role and delivered in ways, and potentially delivered in the ways that he did, because he also didn't feel like he was good enough and he had to prove something. And this character is trying to prove something. So Skinny Steve is trying to prove that he's worthy of this role in this position. But you kind of needed these supporting characters to come in and nail it and deliver, because you know, it's hard. Sometimes you don't realize how much they actually pack into this film within 2 hours. And these actors don't have a lot of time to really dig into their characters and make an impact. So they have to make the most of what little scenes that they get. So with Tommy Lee Jones, you know, he's got to come in. He's got to have that punch to kind of deliver and kind of be like the stick in the mud, you know, standard colonel, but lovable, even though he's gruff. And then Erskine is there, which is Stanley Tucci, like great actor.
He knocks that role out of the park.
Man,
he's acting bacon. You just put him in. Good.
Such a small role that it's like, if you didn't get the right guy for this role, this movie could have, like, you know, not taken off.
He's one of those actors where, regardless of what movie he's in, he's going to play in a great performance. Whether it's Beethoven or this, it's going to be a great performance.
Mm-hmm. He was great as the Doctor, and he was kind of soft spoken, but you could, you know, it just the way that he did it. And then Tommy Lee Jones as Colonel Phillips, he had a command presence, like no nonsense, but you know, he kind of has a heart a little bit, I guess.
Yep.
And then Hayley Atwell as Peggy Carter. Well, first off, she is a smoke show, and secondly,
I can appreciate.
Yeah, and secondly, her character is a female character done well. She's highly trained. She's intelligent. She's capable. But she's not like punching out 300-pound dudes. Now, she does hit that one guy in formation, but that guy's got to stand there and take it. He's not going to hit her back. So that's fine. She talks about, you know, there is some kind of discrimination against her because she is a woman, but she isn't like kind of whiny about it. She just acknowledges it's there and then goes on and bees a badass and presses on past it. But she's still feminine, you know?
Yeah.
And so she doesn't have like a side shape haircut and a bunch of piercings or something.
She uses all qualities that make women great.
Yes, exactly.
You know, to her advantage, and she's fantastic. My current D&D campaign, I play a spy. I actually am basing it off Peggy Carter. Most of my character off of her. So
nice.
She's not the Mary Sue that we're used to nowadays with female characters in Marvel. She can stand on her own too, but she also knows when to ask for help too. And especially towards the end, there's some vulnerability towards her when she's talking to him. I don't want to ruin the ending of the movie for anybody who hasn't seen it, but she shows a more feminine side then. So it's a good balance for her character. I just want to know why nobody's mentioning Dominic Cooper as Howard Stark.
Oh, we will get there, I promise.
But I do want to say before we get to that, I've been dying to talk about this, but so much of this first act, because I'm a seasoned comic book reader, this very much reminds me of the Adventures of Captain America: The Sentinel of Liberty by Fabian Nicienza and Kevin Maguire from like 1993, 94, because there are a lot of elements in this film that are in that comic book series. It was 4 issues, but there's a Peggy Carter character in it, but it's not Peggy Carter. But spoiler alert, she turns out to be a spy working for the Red Skull in it, which is a great plot twist. But yeah, the setup, the different recruits, the camp, it's like this is all from that comic. It's all there. And,
so you're telling me these people actually did their research for this movie?
Yes, they.
Oh.
Yes, they did.
Man.
Absolutely.
And the other thing that makes this movie so good is the relationship between Captain America and Peggy Carter. It's actually a tragedy.
Yeah,
yes.
You know what? That reminds me, Shield. It's so interesting because this is where the relationship starts, and then obviously we have a happy ending in Endgame. But if these two characters weren't casted correctly, do you think the whole Peggy Carter Captain America love dynamic would have been as impactful throughout the first 10 years as it was?
No, not at all.
I don't think so.
Look at Thor. I mean, look at Thor. You know, Chris Hemsworth is a great actor.
Natalie Portman.
Natalie Portman is a great actress.
No chemistry.
There's no chemistry.
Right. Exactly.
And it just, you know, they try so hard to make it work, and it just does not work. So the chemistry here is super key. And honestly, I'm willing to say that I almost feel like they probably didn't really have plans to do much more with Peggy Carter moving forward after this film. But I think so many people responded so strongly to Peggy Carter and Peggy and Steve that they realized, okay, we need to do something. And, you know, they kind of kept Peggy lingering on the TV shows in the background.
She had her own show, and I watched it. It was not bad.
It's not terrible. The first season was better than the second, but
she's a female character that female audience can relate to without it being shoved down your throat, and also by not making Marvel a girl brand. Marvel, to me, especially these first 2 years, the comics and stuff, that will always to me be a boys thing, a men's thing. People can debate me, but Peggy is what women, you can look at it and be like, oh, a strong female character to relate to, somebody I can cosplay, somebody I can do, you know, I can have memorabilia about and stuff, and you know, be into comics. And I'm sure she was a great introduction for a lot of women who never read comics who got into it because of Peggy Carter.
Yeah, and she has a great presence, right? And she's effective and capable without any superpowers whatsoever.
Yep.
She just has, you know, superior British training, I guess,
and knows how to properly use a handgun.
Right. That's what it is. If you
give in the movie too, by the way,
characters proper equipment or fighting style, it can make sense for them taking out a 300-pound dude.
Absolutely. We're kind of like segueing into this naturally, so I kind of want to go ahead and go this route. But as we move into Act 2, it's really about Steve, you know, getting the serum, becoming Captain America.
Stephen? Can you hear me?
It's probably too late to go to the bathroom, right?
We will proceed.
That's 10%. 20%. 30%. That's 40%.
Vital signs are normal.
That's 50%. 60. 70. Demon!
Shut it down!
Demon!
Shut it down!
Kills the reactor, Mr. Stark! Turn it off! Kill it! Kills the reactor!
No! Don't! I can do this!
That's 100%!
Mr. Stark!
Son of a bitch did it.
We did it.
Yeah. I think we did it.
You actually did it.
How'd you feel?
Taller.
You look taller.
And we're going to touch on this and then kind of go back to Peggy being a badass real quick. But Steve does get the serum. He gets picked. He gets the serum. He goes through this whole transformation. Nadia, what were your thoughts when you finally saw Hunky Cap? Like,
What?
did
Why
you
are
gasp
asking me?
when the machine opened and the smoke cleared?
I think when I was in theaters, I went, God damn. Really loud. Mind you, I had not met my husband at the time. So I was single as a Pringle. So
Well, I was with my ex at the time, and both of us were in the theater, and we were like, just no words, just like, okay.
I am, I hate to say this, I'm not a Captain America gal. I'm not a I like a little bit more hair and dad bod time. I'm more of a Star-Lord kind of gal.
Listen,
that's what
I'm gonna just tell you, I was about to eject you from this conversation when you were like, I'm not a Captain America gal. I'm like, done. I don't know why I picked her to join these conversations.
Are you more of a fat Thor kind of girl?
No, I'm not even a Thor. I honestly, I really like the more like muscular, pudgy kind of dudes that Chris Pratt played as Star-Lord, especially in Infinity War. He was a little pudgy there. But yeah, I don't want to be with somebody who has to go to the gym twice a day, 6 days a week, and only eats protein shakes. Heck no. Put a little, let's eat some pasta, man, guy.
It's protein shakes, man. Come on.
Okay. But yes, I remember going, God damn. Especially because they oiled him up too.
They did.
Well, you see that scene where Peggy like almost touches him. She like reaches out, and I saw an interview where that wasn't in the script. It's just that Hayley did that and was like, "Oh wait, what am I doing?" She was that.
Everyone laughed. I remember everyone laughed in the theater. I remember everyone laughing out loud when that happened.
Look, I mean, there are definitely straight guys out there that were probably like, "Yeah, look, I get it. It's fine. Okay, I get it."
Oh yeah.
Whatever.
You can totally see it. And then, I mean, because it's human biology, and also as a man, I could be okay. He worked hard on that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Sitting around eating burritos all day. He was out working in the gym or whatever. Same with Henry Cavill for Geralt of Rivia.
Oh yeah. Okay, we don't need to bring Henry in this conversation right now. All right.
Vex suddenly pops up out of nowhere. She's like, "Did somebody say Henry Cavill?"
I lost my Henry Cavill blanket. I have no idea where it is.
Oh no. Okay,
Yeah.
you got to find that at some point.
I do.
But yeah, so Steve does become Captain America. We get the standard Marvel shirtless scene, which by the way was a contract thing early on. Just FYI, like the dudes had to be shirtless. At least for a scene.
It's a superhero movie. It's a superhero industry. Of course.
They knew what they were doing. They knew they were pulling, and this is what's crazy. Like they knew where they were going to pull in the female gaze and the gay gaze, but they knew that this would be a way to get ladies to be like, yeah, okay, fine, I'll go see that. I'll go see that movie with you, honey. It's fine. But Steve becomes Cap, and then right away we kind of run into some tension. Hydra has a mole that's there, a plant, kind of like a spy, and it leads into what I think is probably the best action scene in the film. For me, it was the most tension filled, had some weight to it. But the mole kind of blows up the facility that they're in. He shoots Erskine, which already makes me hate you. Like, how dare you? We just got this guy who's telling Steve how good he is, how he's a good man, don't let power corrupt. And these people kill him.
I think maybe we need to discuss the part about why Erskine chose him in the first place.
That's a good point. So I did plan on discussing that, but it seemed out of place earlier because we kind of moved on. But yeah, I mean, I think you're right. There's a scene where they sit down.
Right. Yeah. Erskine has invented this serum that will make a person a super soldier, basically. It enhances all of their abilities. And where'd he go? the Johann Schmidt character finds out about this, and he makes Erskine give him the serum. And that's when Erskine feels it. Well, first off, it wasn't completely perfected. And secondly, this is when Erskine figures out that what it does is amplify all of your qualities. So it will make you stronger and faster, but if you're a bad person, if you're evil, it will amplify that evil. It'll amplify that bad. And if you're a good person, it'll amplify your good, which is why Red Skull becomes Red Skull. But he picks Steve Rogers because Steve is weak. He knows what it's like to be beat up. He knows what it's like to not have power. And he doesn't want to give somebody that already knows what power is, then they become corrupted by it, which is why maybe Bucky would not have been a good choice. I think Bucky still could have done it, but he wouldn't have been the same as Steve. But anyway, so that's why. So the night before the procedure, he has a meeting with Dr. Erskine and Steve, and Steve asks, "Why me?" And he says, "Because you're good." And he said, "Don't lose that when you become powerful. Don't lose that goodness."
May I?
Yeah.
Can't sleep?
Get the jitters, I guess.
Me too.
Can I ask you a question?
Just one?
Why me?
I suppose that is the only question that matters. This is from Augsburg, my city. So many people forget that the first country the Nazis invaded was their own. You know, after the last war, my people struggled. They felt weak, they felt small. And then Hitler comes along with the marching and the big show and the flags and and he hears of me, my work, and he finds me. And he says, you. He says, you will make us strong. Well, I am not interested. So he sends the head of HYDRA, his research division, a brilliant scientist by the name of Johann Schmidt. Now, Schmidt is a member of the inner circle, and he is ambitious. He and Hitler share a passion for occult power and Teutonic myth. Hitler uses his fantasies to inspire his followers. But for Schmidt, it is not fantasy. For him, it is real. He has become convinced that there is a great power hidden in the earth, left here by the gods, waiting to be seized by a superior man. So when he hears about my formula and what it can do, he cannot resist. Schmidt must become that superior man.
Did it make him stronger?
Yeah. But there were other effects. The serum was not ready. But more important, the man. The serum amplifies everything that is inside. So good becomes great. Bad becomes worse. This is why you were chosen. Because a strong man who has known power all his life may lose respect for that power. But a weak man knows the value of strength and knows compassion.
Thanks. I think.
Whatever happens tomorrow, you must promise me one thing. That you will stay who you are. Not a perfect soldier, but a good man.
To the little guys.
No, wait, what I am doing. No, you have a procedure tomorrow. No fluids.
All right, we'll drink it after.
No, I don't have a procedure tomorrow. Drink it after, drink it now.
And then so when the doctor dies, Steve is over him and he doesn't say anything, but he points to his chest, to his heart. And that was a very powerful scene because of that. Stanley Tucci did just an amazing job.
Yeah, it was one of those moments where, like, I'm glad there wasn't dialogue there, because just the sheer, like, I don't want to say quietness because you got the commotion going on,
Right.
but the fact that he didn't have to say anything, but he says everything he needs to say just by touching his heart.
And I
pretty
brought
much.
that up because it's a critical part of the story. Without
Yep.
that, you don't get why he's so driven thereafter to catch this guy and do these other things. And one other side note is their security was terrible. This one dude just running through there shooting everybody. It's like, come on, guys. There's like
Yeah.
doors he's got to get through, and this guy just walks through them all. I'm not talking about how he infiltrated in. That's obvious.
It was getting out.
It was getting
Yeah.
out, right? And he just blows through everybody. But he's a trained Hydra agent, I guess.
Sure. No, it does lead to a good action scene in terms of, I'll say between Peggy and Steve. Like, Peggy comes out, she kind of, I think, takes two guys out on the street. This main villain, who is from the Hobbit films, by the way. He's the main dwarf that's in those films.
Oh, that guy. Did that thing.
If you
that guy who did the thing.
if you so this is where this scene that you're talking about is where Peggy gets to really show her capabilities, because she's taking extremely long shots with a little pistol and hitting people with it. So it's how good she is. And then there's a scene where the guy turns around and he's going to come back the other way, and she's going to stand in front of the vehicle and shoot this guy. So she shoots twice and she's lining up the kill shot, and Steve dives in and knocks her down, and she's like, I had him. And he's like, oh, sorry. Where he's acknowledging, like, I didn't want you to get hurt, and maybe my dudism kind of came out and my protective instinct, and also he's only been this powerful for a few minutes. So he's running, and he's like trying to figure out his running. He like runs too fast into a window, like a bridal shop or something.
Yep.
And comes out. He's got no shoes on, and yeah, it was just crazy.
I had him!
Sorry! I'm sorry! I'm leaving!
Interesting, Shield, that you said earlier that had the serum given to Bucky, he wouldn't be as good as Rogers. And I agree with you, because I remember the scene where they were in the bar after they got Bucky, and he's hitting on Peggy just out of the blue, just being a little bro sleazeball, and Rogers is being very polite and keeping things formal, even though you can tell that there's already starting to be some sort of tension between the two of them. And I agree with you. I think Bucky would be more of in a sense, like a morally gray character if he had been given the serum.
Well, the other thing is Bucky is used to women giving him attention.
That's true.
And so it's just a natural thing for him. But I think Bucky was good, but he wasn't as good as Steve. So he might not have problems like capping some people in the back of the head because they deserve it, kind of thing. Whereas Steve would take them in, you know what I mean? And like bring them in, where Bucky might be like, you know what, you're so evil, I just put two in your head. And
Batman
maybe
with guns.
yeah, and exactly, and maybe sometimes that's appropriate. But I just don't think he would have been as value driven as Steve, because he didn't go through the same struggles that Steve did, and that's
Mhm.
the core of this. That I think Marvel has lost is they don't understand the struggle of doing things, or if they do, they don't portray it correctly anymore. It's all very superficial, at least in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, I can see that. I do kind of want to shift into some of the other characters here, but we talked about why haven't we discussed Howard Stark, because he does play a large role here. And I will say, if there's I've had so many people ask me, like, hey, if I'm going to watch the MCU, should I watch it the way it came out in theaters, or should I watch in like a timeline order? And I always say timeline, because I do think this film is by far the perfect way to start the MCU, because of themes. I think kind of what we touched on as far as Captain America as a character, kind of setting up this person who is just so ultimately good. And as much as I love a flawed hero, like, I think we need this kind of straight man to help create that balance and opposition with other heroes down the road. But I think plot wise, it sets up so much stuff. We get our first hero. We get the world's first quote unquote superhero that they know of. You get Howard Stark, brought in, which creates, plot threads into other films, aka Iron Man and beyond. And then you get the Tesseract, which is introduced, which plays a huge role throughout the entire Infinity Saga. So it's just a good starting point. But you've got Howard Stark here, and he's portrayed by Dominic
Cooper.
Yeah, Dominic
Cooper. Yeah.
I like him. I liked him as Preacher in the Preacher series. So
I've never watched that. I need to watch it.
It's one of my favorite comic books of it, probably up there of all time. So I thought the show was pretty good.
Nice.
Yes.
But yeah, he is Howard Stark. He is Howard Stark here, and Howard and Peggy kind of have this, and it's kind of referenced in other projects later on. But Howard comes in, he's helping the SSR, and they are working together, and they eventually create what becomes Shield. But he's this science mogul that's here to kind of help elevate the team. But I kind of want to talk to you guys about his role in this. What did you think? He kind of starts bringing in more of this comic booky element. Aside from the super soldier serum, he's doing all these crazy devices and building things. Did you like his inclusion here? Do you feel like it made the world feel a little more well-rounded and expansive, or do you feel like it kind of narrowed it to a degree?
I liked it. It really showed the roots of where Tony Stark came from. It really showed like where he kind of got it from, genetically. And one thing you did leave out kind of, Josh, is that there's a tie into the Hulk with this too. When we see him with the serum, you see his eyes, they turn white. They don't turn green or anything, but like that's a little nod to the Incredible Hulk, where it's like, okay, this is that same serum that Edward Norton's character was working on, but they got it right with Steve Rogers. But yeah, I do like Dominic West in this as Howard Stark. He's got that same charisma, got that same charm, and yeah, he pulls it off well.
He definitely has that like ladies man approach. I will say he does not play the role in future films. They bring in John Slattery, and
he's great for Mad Men. What? No, don't you dare! Don't say it. Don't
you say you liked it. Don't say you didn't.
No. I'm just gonna. All I'm saying, I like John Slattery. I think he does an excellent job. I just don't see Dominic becoming Slattery. Like,
okay.
Like the morphology that would have to have happened. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think you can, as an audience, you can kind of put that away, a little bit, just because they're so great. They're both so great. I think he was an important addition to just explain how they're getting all this cool technology, fight array machine, and all this other stuff, and also to tie him into the other movies, and how Captain America has a connection with the Starks through that. That maybe, I don't know that Tony might not know about.
Well, looking back at it, I wonder if it was just played into with the other movies that Rogers had a respect for Tony, even though sometimes Tony went off the wall with some things because of the relationship he had
because
with
he
Howard.
saw where he got it from.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and we see in the first Avengers film how like Tony doesn't really have that respect for Steve initially in the first Avengers film. He does, but like rather than that third, the third arc, Tony does build it. You know, it's like they got this super soldier who does live up to the legend. You know, so it's like okay, he's come full circle with Steve. He does accept it.
Which, by the way, this brings me to my favorite scene where they're looking at the shields and he finally picks out the circle shield. And at this time, him and Peggy are having a little bit of tiff because Natalie Dormer's character is flirting with, which I completely forgot she was in this.
Yeah.
Completely forgot.
But okay, so technically he's not attached to anybody. It's not like he's married or anything.
That's not how women think. That's not how women think.
But what I'm saying is, so she's going to shoot her shot, right?
Oh,
she probably
I
had
love
no
this
idea that Peggy was even in the picture.
Right.
Although maybe she did and she just didn't care.
But, I mean, possibly.
Yeah.
But, and then.
I mean, look how she did.
Steve has never been around women like that before. He's never had that kind of attention. So he doesn't know what to do. You know what I mean? And so he's taken aback by it. I mean, it did look like he was kind of enjoying it a little bit when she kissed him. But then Peggy comes out and he's like, "Oh man, busted," and he feels really bad about it because that was not really what he intended. If he was going to kiss anybody, it was going to be Peggy.
Oh yeah.
But and hey, remember, like they went fondue. Remember, don't forget, Peggy and Howard. They went fondue.
Would that be considered then his first kiss ever?
Probably.
We don't know that. He might have gotten kissed when he was scrawny when he was a kid or something.
So so there's a tease, like there's like a woman, I guess I don't know if this is true or not, but like there's a scene in the film where a woman goes up to him and asks for his autograph or whatever when he becomes Cap. That people are saying like, oh yeah, that's the first chick he banged or whatever, and like it produced this character. It's like, wait, what the hell are you talking about?
Oh right, because she no, but that was after the thing with Peggy, right, or not? Where
I think before. It was before. He was going on tour.
Well, he was doing on the tour.
The USO tour.
Okay. Well, he's doing the USO tours. Yeah.
If you're watching this and you're like, why haven't you discussed this? Don't worry, we are. We're going to get into all the comic booky aspects and we'll talk about the USO tour. However, the reason people are saying like, oh, that must be the one that he hooked up with or the woman he hooked up with is probably because of She-Hulk. Because of that post credit scene, and I think it's episode 1, where you've got She-Hulk asking Bruce like, "Oh, is he a virgin? Is he a virgin? Is he a virgin?" Talking about Cap, and then finally when Hulk thinks she's drunk, he's like, "Look, he's not a virgin. Like he met a girl while on the USO tour." And then she's like, "Aha!" And he's like, "You're not drunk." And she's like, "Captain America, fuck!" And it cuts, but yeah. Anyways, that's probably where that comes from. Which is Drew's favorite show, and he loves how they treated the characters and represented the characters.
So well written. So well.
We may or may not make it to that at some point in the series. We'll
I'm
just
out.
have to wait.
I'm out. I'm out.
Just let me say right now, so we can just save all the trouble. The best part of that show was that frog dude when he jumped out that window and broke both his legs. That was the funniest part to me.
The best character in that show was Madison with a Y, but you don't know where it.
Yes, exactly.
Oh yeah, Madison with 2 N's and 1 Y, but not where you think. Yeah,
that's the most realistic character in the show.
It was. Yes. Let's get back to the good project. So yeah, we've got Howard Stark here. He's kind of involved, and then I do want to. The character that we really have not discussed that we have to discuss is our villain. So we have.
I have notes about this.
Oh man, I purposely wanted to save this for this point because I feel like it's kind of what we discussed. This Act 1, this Act 2. There's so many good things. Like you're watching this hero, be created, be born in a lot of ways. There's so many heartfelt moments and so many good things. And then we've got Schmidt, who is the Red Skull and the leader of Hydra. And it's kind of what Drew talked about earlier. There's really nothing Nazi in this to kind of have a juxtaposition here. But as much as I love Hugo Weaving, man, this was such a letdown. Like, I think he did fine.
Interesting.
I think he did fine. I don't think the character was written well.
I could see that. Like I said before we started, I think Marvel missed the shot there of not maybe expanding Red Skull out a little bit more, maybe utilizing him as the first really big baddie for the MCU instead, and then leading into Loki. What was interesting to me when I was watching this was from a makeup point of view, because obviously he's wearing a mask, right? Because he pulls it off and he's got a Red Skull. But if you look at Hugo's face the whole time when he has his mask on, it almost looks like a mask in a way from a makeup point of view. It's very, you can see it worn down around the sides and especially there's one scene where Cap hits him and
the face
his
goes
eyelid
off
pulls
a little
down.
bit.
Yeah. But whoever the makeup artist was basically knew the assignment, because his face was just so worn down, leathery, very, very just. So for him to pull it off and then he's a Red Skull, to me it worked. It worked the composition between the two of them.
On a technical level, the appearance, even Hugo Weaving's performance, I loved all of that. And I'll even say to you, you're talking about the mask, even the complexion of the skin for his mask it's like you can tell it's off.
Not even his it's not really a mask, it's his face. But the shading, just whatever they did to it, you could tell it's just worn down face, I guess, kind of like a leather face in a sense. So it works so well when he pulls it off and then he's got this red, and also Red Skull too. That is a really hard makeup to do when it's just one shade. Give it depth and stuff. So whoever was the makeup artist, kudos to them. Big kudos to them on that, especially with the prosthetic nose piece.
Yeah,
and I'll also say I'm so happy that this movie happened when it did and with the budget that it did, because if you had it today, you know it'd be CGI.
Captain America! How exciting! I am a great fan of your films. So, Dr. Aspen managed it after all. Not exactly an improvement, but still impressive.
You got no idea. Every day.
Lies Aspen told you. You see, I was his greatest success.
You don't have one of those, do you?
You are deluded, Captain. You pretend to be a simple soldier, but in reality, you are just afraid to admit that we have left humanity behind.
But I kind of want to just touch on my issues, and I'm curious to see if Drew, I want to know if you agree with my stance on this, and then, Shield Nadia, like, feel free to jump in as well. But I'm kind of curious to see Drew's thoughts from a comic standpoint. But like the very first scene we get of Schmidt is, I think, 1941 in Norway, when he breaks into that cavern, and he's looking for the Tesseract, and he kills the people, and then he's like, destroy the city, even though he found what he was looking for. I thought that was by far the most intimidating he was the entire movie. And then every scene after that, I feel like it just got more schlocky and more like mustache twirly, which is fine.
Oh no, you're right. I mean, he gets really mustache twirly, like with that. You are failing. Like that's when he really gets. Like, you know what? Why don't you fucking do something? Why don't you jump in and like throw
like
a
that
punch?
guy?
You know?
He's like,
Jesus.
we fought to the last man, and he's like, apparently not, and then he shoots him.
I love that.
I thought that was cool. Yeah.
I chuckled at the part where he gave him the keys, Zola the keys, when he was escape pod for himself, and he's like, don't scratch it up.
Yeah,
Not a scratch doctor.
Yeah, very twirly villain.
Real quick, we also recognize the fact that the guy that was defending the Tesseract that got shot, he apparently didn't die because he shows up again in Harry Potter as the janitor.
David Bradley, yeah.
At Hogwarts. So he went on to a better life after that.
I mean, did he though?
Actually, technically, wouldn't Harry Potter be before?
No, Harry Potter is modern day because the kids, like, when they grow up, they go to the kebab shop and stuff. It's like modern. They're wearing like hoodies and sneakers and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I'm talking about filming for the movies.
Oh, right. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Or, chronologically, it's not. But I mean, obviously, he took some kind of ageless potion or something, so he didn't age.
I would say the Tesseract, being exposed to the Tesseract, it made him, age
preserved him.
I just thought that interesting when I saw him. I was like, wait a second, isn't that that's the janitor from Hogwarts?
Yeah, I don't know. It's something about it for me. As much as I wanted to like Red Skull, it just wasn't happening.
We haven't let Drew talk.
Oh, Drew.
Sorry, no, I really agree, Josh. I mean, one thing, like I said, I brought up earlier, how this really does tie into the Adventures of Captain America and Sentinel of Liberty. They have at least 3 confrontations in that series, and the last one is a great one. I gotta spoil it. It's Captain Red Skull in a Coliseum fighting in front of Hitler and all the higher up armies. Just really showing up, like, all right, who really is the best? Who really is, who's it going to be? Great fight scene, and we don't really get that at all, which is a shame.
It's like there was just a level in look. I understand there is purposely like a schlocky nature to this because it's supposed to take place in the 40s. It's supposed to be reminiscent of a certain era and a certain time. I think Joe Johnston made a lot of great choices with that as a director. I mean, Drew, you mentioned Rocketeer earlier. This guy directed Rocketeer, but there was just a grit and a brutalness that I wanted to see in Red Skull at some point, and we never got it. And I thought we were going to get it in that final fight, and it never happens. But then on top of it, once you start kind of building to the climax of the film and you start seeing more of Hydra, it's like these armies of dudes in gimp suits that are even less capable than stormtroopers. You've got the whole like double arm Hell Hydra.
I was dying. I remember laughing out loud. As soon as they do that first time, the Hail Hydra, the double arm, I was laughing in the theater. Because just how silly it was, and I shouldn't have. I just compulsively laughed. It looked silly.
Well, they had to do something that was, triggered the response of like, oh, are they doing the Nazi salute? But they're doing it with both hands so that it's not that. Because as we've already established, they have a big aversion to that for some reason in the movie. And of course, it's Hydra, so they got to do their own thing. My biggest thing about Johann Schmidt was I kept waiting for him to say Mr. Anderson the whole time. but I thought he did it. I thought he did a decent enough job. He was a decent villain. And then Toby Jones doing the Dr. Zola guy. He's your classic kind of Weasley under dude that is attracted to the power, but that really doesn't want to sacrifice for it at all. But he's also smart enough so that he's useful, so that you got to keep him around. You just can't be like, you're done. Whereas, because when they're escaping and he's like, what about me? And he gives them the keys to the car, he could have just as easily turned and shot him because he would have been a liability or something, because that's what he winds up actually being later on.
I will say, like, there could have been one scene to make it really redeem the Red Skull. Like, if they had shown, like, when the rescue scene, with Cap going to rescue the Howling Commandos, like, if they had shown like one scene of the Red Skull had been like doing eugenic experiments on like Americans or troops, like you see them like withered away, dying or whatever, like
like all mutated and stuff or something.
Yeah, you really see the horror of this guy, like what he's done to people. It's like, okay, now we get like where we got to take this bastard out, but you don't really you get it, but you don't really get it. There's not that moment to really show, yeah, this bastard needs to go down.
I think that's why the first viewing of this, I wasn't very impressed with it going in, because the villain there wasn't a lot at stake, as you were saying,
Right.
Jude. There wasn't, but going back and rewatching it, obviously I know the history between the two, so I can understand the beats of the movie a little bit better. But yeah, that makes me think that maybe that's why the first time watching didn't really stick with me.
Yeah, I had a problem like after the big rescue, and they're like, "Oh, the planes have come back, and they had no sign of them anywhere." And then they walk into camp. I'm like, "Okay, I can see like one or two guys, but they got like 400 dudes. How did nobody see that? That's a huge fail. It didn't make any sense to me."
Not only that many guys, but they come back in like tanks and everything else.
Yeah, and there's like vehicles and stuff,
like,
right?
What?
It's like nobody
What, saw
saw
the tread marks in the ground? What the hell?
Yeah. Now, if they had been like, "Hey, we sent the planes, we couldn't find anything," and then shown that it was like 6 days later, and the guys came walk, like, probably would have been on board. But interesting plot point. I will say I thought it was one of the most cringiest moments in the entire movie, but it's after the rescue, after he gets the Howling Commandos, they break out, really cool, fun moment. But when they come back and everyone's like cheering, and you got Bucky that's like, "Let's hear it for Captain America," and they're like, "Yeah." I don't know. I was not a fan.
Juxtaposed to one of the best moments in the film, I think is one of the best, is when Cap finishes his USO tour. Then he goes.
Oh,
to
yes.
the site, and everyone's just like, what the fuck? Bring the dancers
yeah.
back out.
Bring out the girls.
Yeah, one of the best moments in the film, bar none. I loved it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
What did they say? Like, "Nice boots, twinkle toes," or something like that. Yeah. No, there's a lot of like really good kind of quiet moments popped in throughout the film that kind of like the tone of it offsets quickly to really kind of give you a good change.
That whole USO production was very 1940s. Like, legitimately, that was like something that would happen. With
Absolutely.
the girls and everything. And that was probably the most realistic scene, where all the military guys were like, "Get off the stage and bring back
100%.
Yeah,
100% true. Yeah.
And also, so he wanted to do stuff. The colonel was like, "Nah, we're going to send you to Alamogordo or wherever and hide you out." But that senator was like, "Look, we can make war bonds off of it if you go out and do all this." So he does all that, and he thinks he's serving his country, and he's proud to do it. But then when he gets there, he sees that there are people being wounded and hurt, and that he's not really living up to his full potential, which is another theme in the movie of people being held back because of reasons that they can't mature to their full potential. And that, I think, also speaks to people universally, right?
Yeah.
For various reasons. And he finally has had enough of it. There's a scene where he's like, "I'm going to go get him no matter what." And Peggy's like, "What are you doing?" Because they all got, Bucky got captured and stuff. And he's like, "I'll walk there if I have to." And again, she falls more in love with him when he says that, I think. And then they're on the plane with Stark, because she knows Stark, so they take him up. And they're like, "Hey, the flag starts," and she's like, "We're gonna take you all the way to the drop zone." He's like, "No, you're not. I'm just gonna bail out here." I can't remember what he said though, but when he's at the door, she said something and he said something. It was pretty cool. And then he bails out, and it's another thing that just adds on to that layer of their relationship. And he gets jealous because they're gonna go fondue.
Right. Yeah, the layers of the relationship was done really, really well, because you built that relationship between Steve and Peggy without needing to have melodrama or without having to have this cheesy dialogue between the two. It was just a mutual respect and seeing the core of each of the characters kind of really shine through in moments.
And I liked it because it respected how courtship was done back then.
Yeah,
as well.
Well, we don't do it the same way anymore? What are you talking about?
Yeah. No.
It's called Tinder, and it's totally respectful.
Oof, I'm glad I dodged that bullet. I can't imagine dating nowadays. It's interesting. I mean, the two of them, again, we were talking about how they have good chemistry on screen, and I'm trying to think through, and I can't think of another couple that has that much chemistry, but yet they haven't spent much time on screen either.
Right.
Throughout
I don't know if it's her accent or what, but something about it is just like, you get it. You know what I mean?
Because even
the only one that comes close is Downey Jr. and Gwyneth Paltrow. That's like the
You
only other
think so?
couple I think.
I don't think
There's some there's something there. I see it in Iron Man 2 or in Iron Man 1. I see it, but we'll leave it at that.
Maybe I'll notice it because the first watch through, even thinking just now, like I don't get a sense of the chemistry like they do. I don't get it with Doctor Strange and
There's none there at all.
Yeah,
Rachel McAdams.
Yeah. What about Ant-Man and
None.
I don't see it either too. No, they to me weirdly it's more of a sibling chemistry comes off.
Right.
Yes.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I thought Ant-Man and Michael Pena's character had more chemistry.
Yes.
Yes. That is 100% true. Yeah.
Okay, so here's what happened, man.
That's the best part of that whole movie.
She had more chemistry with the Yellow Jacket, the guy who plays in the first film, than Scott Lang.
Yeah. The only characters that I can think of that I feel like have a good romantic chemistry, and this is going to the shows, which you have more time to build this, but Matt Murdock and Karen Page, like they managed to have a good kind of will they won't they chemistry. You understand their chemistry in Daredevil.
Right. Do you see when when Punisher shows up, man, she's wet for him.
I would too.
Crazy.
I would
because he was like
Not
a damaged, guy and everything. Yeah, I was like, wow, she is like, I could see it.
She wants that Jolly Roger on that chest. Yeah.
But he terrifies her.
Yeah, he does, and I think that's also what excites her.
There's something about fear, my guys. There's something about fear.
And then honestly, the only other characters that I think have that type of chemistry and it's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is Fitzsimmons. Like those two, I
never watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, it was pretty good to start with, and then it kind of fell off. But yeah, the Fitzsimmons thing is really good, and she's super cute too.
Yeah.
What about Star-Lord and Gamora?
Yeah, I was thinking that too. A little, at least I would at least put them as second place if I had to pick a second place out of them. But then again, I haven't seen Iron Man 1 or 2 in a long time, so I'm gonna be on the lookout for that, Drew. I want to watch it to see.
You know what? If we're talking films, I think the couple that we're neglecting that really had the best chemistry outside of these two was Wanda and Vision.
Yes.
And who had even less time before the show,
right?
Who had even less time to try to make it work.
Yes.
And by really Infinity War, like I was on board. It was a little strange, but
because of the way that you could just feel the emotion in her when she was like tearing Thanos apart. She was like, "You took everything from me." I thought that was a really good scene. And then I'm like,
I just got chills. Man.
I don't even know who you are.
And she's powerful. But again, it's because of her abilities that make her powerful, right?
Yep.
But
WandaVision is a great show about grief, but that's for a different time, right?
That is for a different time for sure.
Yeah.
So kind of getting back on track with Captain America, I know we kind of touched on the USO tour and S.H.I.E.L.D. You were talking about the reality of war bonds and it being like that. I want to kind of partner with Drew on this too. Like this whole war bond thing, this was real and alive with comics. Like people were being told to like turn their comics in
the Captain America comics.
Yes, for this very reason.
There are messages in the Captain America comics saying like, "Hey, don't buy the next issue of Captain America. Go buy the war bond. That'll put the next bullet in the Nazi or the Japanese. It's in the comics.
Nothing to it. You sell a few bonds. Bonds buy bullets. Bullets kill Nazis. Bing, bang, boom. You're an American hero."
It's just not how I pictured getting there.
The Senator's got a lot of pull up on the hill. You play ball with us, you'll be leading your own platoon in no time. Take the shield.
Strong and brave, here to save the American way.
Not all of us can storm a beach or drive a tank, but there's still a way all of us can fight.
Who vows to fight like the man for what's right night and day?
Series E defense bonds. Each one you buy is a bullet in the barrel of your best guy's gun.
Who will campaign door to door for America? Carry the flag shore to shore for America. From Hoboken to Spokane. The
God.
Guys, don't look at the camera.
Can't ignore if there's a threat, and the war we must win.
Each one you buy is a bullet in the barrel of your best guy's gun.
Who'll hang a noose on the goose, stepping goons from Berlin?
Know this is about trying to win the war. We can't do that without bullets and bandages, tanks and tents. Now that's where you come in. Every bond you buy will help protect someone you love. Keep our boys armed and ready, and the Germans will think twice about trying to get the drop on us.
Yeah, so for me, that's one of the things that I love about this film is you've got the heart of the character and Steve and the people around him and how much that kind of just resonates really, really well. But you've got this historically accurate depiction of what would happen and what we do around wartime, the tie that comic books had to it, the fact that Captain America was created as kind of like this propaganda figure, for the U.S. It even how they were sending Captain America comics overseas to troops during that time as a means to like lift spirits, which I'm sure they probably looked at kind of like what we saw in the scene of like, this is kid stuff. Why am I reading this? This isn't my reality. My reality is awful. And that's kind of where we get to see that reality for Steve when he goes overseas to those guys and they don't respond to him. So all of that, I thought it was perfect. I loved that little musical that they had. With the stage play, like for me,
and the kids are like, "Look out behind you, Captain America!"
The costuming was great.
Oh yeah,
it was looked
perfect.
amazing. Wouldn't it be nice to see a show like that again?
Oh,
I'd pay to see it.
Yeah.
Oh, I would too. Well, I mean, they've got Rogers the musical. I mean,
oh god, don't.
Oh no!
I actually like that. I thought it was funny. I thought it was fun.
It was cute.
Yeah.
All right, let's kind of move into the third act and kind of wrap things up. But we do kind of build into, I guess the climax for me. The climax of the film is when they're going after, and we've kind of touched on some of this a little bit, but they're going after Red Skull. They're trying to stop him, but along that process, you've got the train scene. And for me, I thought this is where the highest tension of the film was. And look, people are gonna be like, "What climax?" No, the climax is gonna be the final battle. When you're writing scripts, you technically use a 5-act structure, and climax is your third act, and then fourth act is your following action. But there's still action and tension that's supposed to be involved. But in a film structure, this is the climax. You've got that train scene. You've got the Howling Commandos and Steve and Bucky. They're invading. They're trying to get information on Red Skull. But this is where we have the altercation with the guy in the huge like cannon blaster type things. He blows a hole in the side of the train, and Steve loses Bucky.
Which I thought this was way more impactful than the actual climax of the movie when I first watched it. Did not see that coming at all. Did it? Yeah, because I didn't know that. I didn't, because I didn't know the history of Winter Soldier. I didn't know what they were doing with this. So as somebody
neither did I. I just thought, oh, he died.
I was like, oh, you just saved him, and now you're gonna kill him off. I'm like, what the hell am I watching?
But it was important for the character development of Cap because he saves everybody, right? So he's the hero and he's the savior. And none of those guys die, and all of those other missions are wiping out all kinds of buildings and stuff. And the Red Skull's like, do better. and none of them die, but Bucky dies. And here's the important part of it. He just doesn't die randomly, is that Cap is knocked down. Bucky grabs the shield and protects Cap from that killer blast. And that is what deflects off the shield and blows the train open and throws him out. And then for all his powers, for all his abilities, he just can't save him. And because, he's just too far gone and he falls to his death.
Speaking of chemistry, those two have a good chemistry too.
Right.
Throughout the years of the MCU. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, there were a lot of opportunities, I don't think, where people really connected with Bucky. Where it's like, he's some kind of douche or whatever, but he was his friend. He cared about him. He just wasn't the kind of guy that really showed a lot of emotion, I guess. But anyway, that part that really got to Cap, in my opinion, when I watched it, was he died saving the Captain America.
Yeah.
Which really, I think, hit home to him, which has then steeled him more to continue on and do what he needed to do.
It's interesting to me because I didn't know he was coming back as Winter Soldier. I had no idea, but my husband did and did not tell me. So when we finally got, I think it was the end credit scene where they kind of glimpsed a little bit of where he was locked up or something, where they introduced him, I believe, in the end credits before Winter Soldier, that I was like, what? He's back? How did he survive? Why? Wait a minute. Why is he the same age as Cap? All this stuff. So yeah. As someone who doesn't read the comics, it was very surprising and well played.
It's definitely a good twist. If you don't know the comics, it's a good twist that you're probably not prepared for. Shield, you mentioned how people viewed Bucky and he's kind of a douche and whatever, but he died protecting Cap. That was kind of like what I was alluding to in my comment earlier, when if you go back to if we were to have Bucky and Steve's history prior to when we first meet them in this film, like Bucky was this superhero figure, probably for Steve. He was the guy that was sticking up for Steve. He was the guy that was including Steve. He was probably the guy being like, yo, don't talk shit about my friend. He's a good guy. Like that was probably Bucky. We don't get to see any of that, but they managed to find a way to, without dialogue, just the chemistry that they have with one another, the trust that they have in one another. They find a way to try to convey there's this history there, that we are here for each other. We look out for each other. We have each other's best interests at heart. And that this scene really kind of delivers it. And as much as like having, Bucky fall and seeing Steve's, kind of initial reaction, for me, it's the scene that follows where I think they're in Berlin and Steve goes into that bar that's just been completely blown and he's trying to get drunk and he can't. And Peggy finds him. And
that's the pub that they were all partying in.
Oh, that's right.
Bombing raid on England. And he walks by. Oh, wait. I'm mixing up Masters of the Air, where the little dead girl comes out of the thing. But so he goes into the to that pub where they were all partying, and now it's blown out and destroyed. And he's sitting in there, and Peggy comes and finds him.
Blackout is still in effect throughout the London area.
Dr. Erskine said that this serum wouldn't just affect my muscles, it would affect my cells. Create a protective system of regeneration and healing, which means, I can't get drunk. Did you know that?
Your metabolism burns 4 times faster than the average person. He thought it could be one of the side effects. It wasn't your fault.
Did you read the report?
Yes.
Then you know that's not true.
You did everything you could. Did you believe in your friend? Did you respect him? Then stop blaming yourself. Allow Barnes the dignity of his choice. He damn well must have thought you were worth it.
I'm going after Schmidt. I'm not gonna stop till all of Hydra is dead or captured.
You won't be alone.
It's a really good scene, good dialogue, but visually it's a good representation of, you know, his whole world is kind of lost now. Everything
Yeah,
that he's
you're right.
known
I mean,
is
yeah, you said like we learn about that more in the following films. That like when his family died, Bucky was all he had. That was his brother, his father, his best friend, and he lost all of that right there with him. And yeah, they touch upon it in later films, but yeah, it's very powerful when you know all
It's like
that
a
now.
flashback or something, right? In some of the other films, to where
Yeah.
they're back to that time in Brooklyn or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Imagining not being able to get drunk. That sucks.
Oh yeah. I mean, he talks about that. They talk about the metabolism, and you know,
Yeah.
it was expected that it might be a side effect, and just the idea it too. It's the one moment that we see Steve wanting to not give up but give in. He just wants a moment of just giving in and not being this, you know, uh person to stand tall. He just wants to have this moment, and he can't. It's been robbed of him at this point. For me, it was just a great moment, and I think it's one of the things that Joe Johnston did so well with this film. Of you've got so many different tones that happen throughout this movie, and overall, there's this really like slick, glossy feel. You've got that 1940s Americana feel throughout the entire film, and you have quiet little moments like this that just really kind of deliver that, like, hey, yes, this is what people think of this time, but the reality is this was the reality. Like, you know, going to the USO, seeing the soldiers not getting a good response, that's the reality. You know, having a time where you see your friend and then they're gone, that's the reality. The moment kind of earlier in the film, when you've got Cap and he's drawn himself as a dancing monkey, you know, and he makes a comment, and Peggy's like, is that you speaking, or is that Senator Brandt speaking? Like, you've got these little just tinges of humanity that are heavier moments, but they're not too heavy. They don't go too deep into it to really kind of make a slog. It's just enough of a light punch to make that moment as impactful as it needs to be, and then can carry the film forward after that. But I loved it. So let's get to this final fight.
Which, by the way, Chris Evans hated that costume. Hated that last costume, the final costume. He said it was the most uncomfortable thing he ever worn, which is hilarious because I think they brought him back into wearing it in Avengers, the end of Avengers, or one of the movies after
And
this.
Winter Soldier, he wears it at the
Yes. Oh, so there's a ton of articles on how complaining how tight it was and how uncomfortable
What
it
did
was.
what did you think of his original costume, where he had the paratrooper pants on with the boots, and then the top, which was just basically like a sweater kind of thing, and then he had a leather jacket over that with a helmet and goggles and a 45.
I dug it because it reminds me of the Ultimates version by Mark Miller and Brian Hitch, because it's kind of similar to that, and not completely, but it had gleams of that, and I'm like, that's how I was able to dig it. Good message.
I really like that, and I like the fact that he had a 45. I personally think that he should have been packing a 45 in every show. I know he's not supposed to and all that, but
look,
there's so many times where he's like, I got my shield. If he just had a 45, he could have just domed somebody and taken care of it.
Let me tell you, in that costume, he was definitely packing a 45 somewhere else.
Oh, whoa! That's for the late night stream.
Specifically, I believe it was in Avengers or whatever, where they disable the helicarrier and he's got to go up there, and those guys are shooting at him and stuff. And I think he picks up a gun in that and shoots back.
Yeah,
at
he's got an assault rifle. Yeah, he picks up an assault rifle,
which is cool. And I'm just like, look, he's a good guy and all this, but he's still a soldier, trained soldier, so he should have a firearm or something to deal with people at range other than his shield. But that's just
I completely agree with you, and it's one of the things that I've hated with comics and how they'll do this with these characters that are soldier characters and then not let them use guns. And as someone who used to write exclusively covering DC type stuff, specifically Batman stuff, Kate Kane's character, Batwoman, she was a soldier before she ever became a hero. And the fact that she never used guns always like pissed me off so bad. I'm like, she would use, like, she is trained to use a gun. Like that is her instinct. Give her a freaking gun.
I'm not saying you should be running around, popping caps on everybody he sees, but he should, he should at least have the gun. I just
Yeah,
like that
Shield-
uniform.
yeah.
It looked cool.
Shield. If you haven't checked them out, do read the Ultimates by Mark Miller and Brian Hitch, because he really shows just what a grounded Captain America would be like in World War II. Just a badass who does use weapons. Because he uses everything from tanks to guns and everything from past into present. It's awesome. That's Captain America you'll love to see.
Yep. They use a lot of stuff from the Ultimates to kind of
absolutely
inspire MCU, especially the early days.
Even the
which was
Triskelion.
Smart. Yeah. I mean, it's very much a very cinematic type book, so it was the right way to go. And I think it was the good segue. But yeah, this final act.
It was very rushed.
Oh
Very
my
rushed.
gosh,
And it veers. One thing I hate, it's rushed, but it veers away from what happened to Cap in a pure way. They've gotten right so many times in the past, and it's like, to me, it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
Even today, it still doesn't make sense.
Again, I think they didn't utilize Red Skull like they should have. Especially, maybe they could have had somebody else, or maybe an underling in this, and then flourished out an origin story of Captain America, and then lead into maybe a Red Skull movie. But yeah, looking back on it, I remember the Bucky scene, but I'll tell you right now, I could not tell you how this movie ended, except after when he's crashing the plane. Like, I don't remember the interaction between him and Skull.
That was the other thing. There were so many ways they could have disabled that plane to prevent it from taking off once he got in the air. He's like, I gotta put it in the water. No, dude, there's like 100 other things you could do besides that.
100%. Yes.
And I mean, obviously he knows how to fly because he flew that little fighter thing around it in a circle, which is a lot harder to do than you would think around a moving vehicle. But so it had some contrivances, like he crashes the fighter thing back into the plane, and it happens to be right next to where he dropped his shield off. So, but I can forgive those kinds of things. But just, I did think that the flying wing thing was really cool.
Yeah.
And that it had like, mini fighters that could drop out of it and stuff. Although the other thing is that they got the crewmen that are going to fly the plane, right? Where's the bridge crew? That thing was giant. It should have had like 100 dudes up there.
There was like no bridge crew.
Yeah, there was nobody there except Red Skull. And I felt that was kind of rushed to what Nadia was saying, is it made it feel rushed. He should have had to fight his way through waves of henchmen before he got to Red Skull. Because that's how
you're right. I mean, it really, they should have stuck to the original reason what happened to him. Like they're on a launch pad, but you don't have to do Baron Zemo. That's fine. You can say that for later. But maybe it was Red Skull there at the launch pad tower. Like, it's just one rocket, one missile going to the United States, going to hit the White House. That's clean and simple. And Captain America has to stop the rocket. He's on the rocket, and the rocket explodes midair. We think Cap died with the rocket when it exploded. That's all you need. It's like, oh my God, he's dead. But no, he's discovered centuries later. And it's like, oh shit.
I also want to know why the Tesseract melted through the plane, yet it can't melt through a little case it's carried in. It can't melt through everything else.
I took it as that special claw thing that grabs it. Like,
but it's been out. Yeah, but it's been out. It's been on.
Yeah, it was in a wooden box.
Desks. It's been on things. So why didn't it melt through the other stuff?
Right. It was literally
built by MacGuffin. It's MacGuffin material.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so maybe because what's his name touching it activated it somehow or whatever, and like send him up, because doesn't it send him to the other place where he becomes the guardian of the soul stone?
Yeah, it's so I mean, like, the Tesseract is the space stone, so it can transport people. At the time of this, we didn't know this, but it looks like it burns him alive in this scene. And I just remember being like, this scene happened, I was like, that's it? Like, that's it?
That's what I was thinking too. I was like, that's how you take out Red Skull? All right.
I saw the beam of energy taking him up into the weird cosmos thing.
Right. It's like sucking him.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it was more so like for this movie. That's it, because I felt like we got robbed of a really good fight between Cap and Red Skull, and I thought like all the action that was happening between them with the plane and the gravity kind of taking them. I thought that was fun, but I thought that was the setup, not the actual like fight. But I will say, we're talking about how, this happens to Red Skull and then we pretty much never see him again until Endgame. I do think that the original intention was to either have him come in for Avengers as one of the main villains,
Oh, but Hugo didn't want to come back though.
yeah, or have him in Cap 2 as like, coming back as well. But Hugo Weaving was done. He was blatant and saying like, I'm not coming back. I'm not doing this again. Like, screw you guys. I'm out of here.
I think it was the hours and makeup that just
he was just it wasn't happening. So I wonder how much of that kind of impacted at least not seeing the character in the future. But despite that, this third act was rushed, and so it was almost like we lost all the goodwill that was built up between Act 1 and Act 2, and then it was almost like a different film. Like, just let's get crazy comic book stuff with things exploding because it's a comic book movie.
Right. And then he's on the plane, right? And then the pilots come out, and these guys are like somehow superhuman judo masters. He should have been kicking the crap out of them. And all they had was like knives and stuff. And they're like basically like stopping him from doing what he needs to do. Yet in other times, guys with real guns will come out and he'll just like Spartan kick him across the screen. So I don't know. I didn't find that part really that believable. I thought the airship was cool. I thought the little mini bombers were cool. I thought his car, the Red Skull's car, was badass. I thought that was really cool.
Oh yeah, I'd totally drive one of those. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Yep.
I've got a trench coat too. I'll wear it and drive it. Why not?
Yeah, that was it, because that was totally a failed Austrian painter's kind of car.
Absolutely.
The one scene in the third act I did really enjoy was the scene between Tommy Lee Jones and Arnim Zola, the General Arnim Zola, the dinner scenes. Like, I brought you dinner. Come on.
What's it made out of?
I will. I will also say that scene to me, from a technical standpoint, I think is the best filmed scene in the entire movie in terms of how they film it, with Zoloff walking into that like interrogation room, or his what's kind of like his holding cell. They film it a little off tilt and at a Dutch angle, and they have a focus on, I think it was something like a water drip or something.
It was like a blood stain on the floor.
Well, they do show a blood stain, but just that whole scene, how they film it, and then the way Tommy Lee Jones comes in.
Coming out.
It was the spigot. Yeah. There was so much mood in the way they filmed that scene that I was like, oh, this is great.
Sit down.
What is this?
Steak.
What is in it?
Cow. Doctor, do you realize how difficult it is to get a hold of a prime cut like that out here?
I don't eat meat.
Why not?
It disagrees with me.
How about cyanide? Does that give you the rumbly tummy too? Every HYDRA agent that we've tried to take alive has crunched a little pill before we can stop it. But not you. So, here's my brilliant theory. You want to live.
You're trying to intimidate me, Colonel.
I bought you dinner.
Given the valuable information he has provided, and in exchange for his full cooperation, Dr. Zola is being remanded to Switzerland?
I sent that message to Washington this morning. Of course, it was encoded. You guys haven't broken those codes, have you? That would be awkward.
Schmidt will know this is a lie.
It's going to kill you anyway, Doc. You're a liability. You know more about Schmidt than anyone. And the last guy you cost us was Captain Rogers, his closest friend, so I wouldn't count on the very best of protection. It's you or Schmidt. It's just the hand you've been dealt.
Schmidt believes he walks in the footsteps of the gods. Only the world itself will satisfy him.
You do realize that's nuts, don't you?
The sanity of the plan is of no consequence.
And why is that?
Because he can do it.
What's his target?
Target is everywhere.
But then you've got two class acts like Toby Jones and Tommy Lee Jones. Just
Tommy Lee Jones' character is great. There's certain scenes he's just in the background, but you could just tell by the emotion on his face that he portrays or his body language. There's a couple I think especially towards the end where Peggy's talking to Rogers and it's towards the end and you can see him in the background. He's like telling the other person like, let's go, give them some privacy. And you can tell that he's like
the kiss while they're driving.
No. There was
I'm joking.
There was a part where they were talking and he was like, hey, told the other person, let's get out of here.
Yeah, he mutes like empathy very well so for coming across as such a tough guy, right?
He is the perfect example, or this character and even his performance is the perfect example of how you subvert expectations. Because you have Tommy Lee Jones as what you expect him to be and what you expect this character to be. And then when you don't expect it, in even unspoken ways, you get this softer understanding, this reasonable, like human emotional side of him without conveying emotions, just like this is a human moment, let it happen type of that's for me, this is the way you subvert expectations with either plot or character.
He did it again when he brought her Roger's file at the end as well. Didn't say anything between the two of them, just the look on his face handing it over.
And when they're in the car and they're trying to stop the Red Skull from taking off in the flying wing, they're driving and Peggy and him kiss. He finally gets that kiss, and then the Colonel's like, "Hey, don't look at me. I'm not going to kiss you." But
I'm going to be honest. I hate that moment. But I mean, I love the Colonel's line, but I hate the kiss. I'm like,
oh, really? You don't like the kiss?
I like the whole like we've got to catch the plane, and the car's about to drive off the cliff. It's a little too much for me.
Because he's a single Pringle.
I liked it because I was like, all right, they finally acknowledge their feelings for each other, but it's at the moment where they can't do anything about it, really. So he gets that kiss and that's it. And
I'm with you, Shield. It wouldn't impact the end as much as it does between the two of them if there wasn't this scene right beforehand.
Then to go back to about the relationship is, so he got caught kissing that other chick. So she got mad at him and she was like, I'm not really going to interact with him that much. But then she's seeing in the newsreels where he's doing all these things, saving people, and he get his compass out. She sees he has her picture in it. And she's like, and then the Colonel's like, aha, I know what's going on now. And, but you could see that her love for him is built up incrementally over time. It isn't just something like, oh, he's hot or whatever. It's slowly built upon actions that he does that are not even really, he's not even addressing them towards her, but they're things that he does about his character that she can admire. And then she sees that, and then she said, okay, he really does like me. It's not just some random pinup or something, And then they have that kiss. Then he gets on the plane and he has the fight. And then he calls back to the command center and she's there. And that is, I think, when they tell everyone to get out of the room because they're having that personal call. And, and she's like, oh, you can, there's got to be something you can do. He's like, no, there's nothing I can do. I got to put it in the water. And they never say, I love you to each other. They just say, you promised me a dance. And he's like, well, I have to take a rain check on it. How about, the Coconut Club or whatever next Saturday? And she's like, okay. And they both know that that's not going to happen. and they never say it. It that's the tragedy of the whole thing.
Peggy, this is my choice. Check on that dance.
All right. A week next Saturday at the Stork Club.
You got it.
8 o'clock on the dot. Don't you dare be late. Understood?
You know, I still don't know how to dance.
I'll show you how. Just be there.
We'll have the band play something slow.
I'd hate to step on your...
Steve? Steve? Steve?
Oh, there's a great shot where they pull back and she's crying or emotional. There's like a dark tone to it right after the call ended. Oh, I love that shot when they're just
While they're talking,
slowly pulling it back.
She holds it together. She doesn't actually. You can see it in her eyes, but she's not like bawling. It's not until after it goes dead, and it goes dead in the middle of a sentence, which is also poignant.
Yeah, he's literally, because he says, I still haven't, I still don't know how to dance, and she says, I'll teach you, and I think he says, okay, I'll try not to step on your.
Right.
And it's just like,
that was perfect writing too.
Oh yeah,
that was perfect writing, and it also goes back to his character that what he's willing to sacrifice, right? And he wasn't all like whiny and crying, oh why me? He was like, this is what I gotta do, and he does it. Again, I think that there was other ways he could have disabled that thing, got it off course, whatever. But
and maybe actually put it in the water, not on ice.
Well, yeah,
there was water below the ice. I mean, come
right,
on.
exactly. But anyway, so I thought that was the best part of Act 3 or the final.
Oh yeah, like it and it's what Nadia mentioned earlier. Like when she thinks about how this movie ended, she doesn't think about the fight or Red Skull or what that conflict was. She remembers this tragic loss between the two. And again, I think that's part of why. Oh, I think we lost Drew. We'll see if he comes back in. That's what happens when you talk shit about Marvel and Disney. They come for you when you least expect it. But yeah, you get that ending, and I think that carries into so many future, like the scenes we get with them in Winter Soldier, the scenes that we get in Endgame, like all that really, like, it lands because of what happens here. Because you're spending in real time, it's like 10 years of us as these movies are coming out. Just like Cap deserves his moment. We know that, and you're just waiting for it and waiting for it and waiting for it. And you get that payoff, 10 years down the road in a movie we will get to in time. Go ahead.
Real quick, just to talk about Peggy Carter one more time, is so in the What If thing, she becomes Captain Britain. Like she gets the serum or whatever. In my opinion, she is the best person to take that serum. If you know what I mean. I don't know if another character in that universe would be as good as her. So when she was in the WandaVision movie or whatever it was called, and it had like the Fantastic Four in it.
I love how you called it a WandaVision movie when it was a Doctor Strange movie.
Yeah, Doctor Strange.
Doctor
Strange movie.
Yeah, I got
exactly.
you. Yeah, I hate that movie so much.
Same.
Yeah, just we don't want
We'll
to
get to it.
Anyway,
We'll get to it. We'll get
she
to
was
it.
great in that. She went out kind of badly in that. That was kind of dumb, but I thought that she looked good. She looked the part. She's very British, which, you know, you're going to represent your country. That's how you do it. You know what I mean? So, and I thought she was real believable in that. And I liked it. I was like, yeah, she's great in that. I wasn't like, oh man, you know, they miscast her or whatever. I was like, yes, she's Peggy Carter. She should be Captain Britain. She has all the attributes and aspects and training to be that person. So I liked it. And so like we were saying, I think their chemistry was super good. I would like to see a what if where it's Captain America and her's Captain Britain. Like,
I think she's only called Captain Carter though, because I think Captain Britain's an actual.
It is an actual.
It is, and it is a character that it has some. I mean, it's Betsy. Yeah. There's different versions, but she is essentially Captain Britain. They just call her.
It's
Captain
a mix
Carter.
of the two. Yeah,
right. Because I think we're eventually going to get the Braddock Captain Britain. But you know, Shield, you're talking about how well it works and how much she fits, and you know, is that Captain Carter character. But so much of even her in this film, like she is a mirror to Steve. Like, you know, she's got the same morals that he has. She lives by the same standards. Like him, she has something that she has to prove because she's a woman in the 1940s in a military role. That's not even like a chump change military role. She's kind of a mid-level, you know.
She's a special operations operative, which a lot of women did in World War II. It was, you know, there was a space for them there to do those things. It wasn't all, you know, frontline combat. So it was a role that they could fill. And they did stuff like parachute women behind enemy lines, like real, you know what I mean? Like, and a lot of them died doing that. They would get captured and killed, or they would die from the parachute, you know, misdrop at night or whatever. Super dangerous stuff. So, you know, I wish there were more stories about that.
Yeah, that could be pretty awesome. We do in this film with Steve waking up in what seems like it's still the 1940s. Turns out that it's Shield with a facade preparing him because they brought him back out from the ice. They've recovered him. It's present day, and this is the first glimpse that we see Captain America as he's kind of known as being this man at a time.
And the tightest white shirt they could ever find for him, baby size.
We're okay with that. That's fine.
Okay.
So the Dodgers are tied 4-4, and the crowd well knows that one swing of his bat, this fellow's capable of making it a brand new game again. Just an absolutely gorgeous day here at Evans Field. The Phillies have managed to tie it up at 4-4, but the Dodgers have 3 men on. Pearson beamed right here in Philadelphia last month. Wouldn't the youngster like a hit here to return the favor? Pete leans in. Here's a pitch. Swung on. A line to the right. And it gets past Rizzo. 3 runs will score. Ryder heads to third. DeRocher's going to wave him in. Here comes the relay, but they won't get him. Pete Reiser with an inside.
Good morning.
The park grand slam.
Or should I say afternoon?
Where am I?
You're in a recovery room in New York City.
The Dodgers take the lead 8-4. Oh, doctor. Everyone is on their feet. What a game we have here today, folks. What a game indeed.
Where am I really?
I'm afraid I don't understand.
The game. It's from May 1941. I know because I was there. I'm going to ask you again. Where am I?
Captain Rogers.
Who are you?
Captain Rogers, wait! All agents, code 13. I repeat, all agents, code 13.
Look, I'm sorry about that little show back there, but we thought it best to break it to you slowly.
Break what?
You've been asleep, Cap, for almost 70 years. You gonna be okay?
Yeah, I had a date.
But this works on so many levels. Like, you get the first glimpse of what we're going to see of Cap in the future. This is one of the big main teases of Avengers, because this film, in chronological order for release, came right before Avengers. But it was a nice tease of like, okay, now that you know the story, let's really see this character in present day. Let's really explore this hero in modern times. And I remember just seeing the ending and being hyped, but also still being down, because he's down because he's putting two and two together that he's 70 years too late for a date. So,
which, by the way, wouldn't that make her how old is she?
At least in her 90s.
Yeah,
90s, right? Yeah, because
Yeah.
what, she's at least have to be.
Well, he was what,
There's
70
no way
years?
There's no way she's 20 in the 1940s. No way.
They said that Nick Fury's line is, "You've been asleep for almost 70 years." So,
Almost
or
70
nearly.
years. So maybe
yeah,
it
nearly
was.
70 years.
Well, hold on. What year did this? So it was supposed to be 2011, right?
It's like 2010, 2011, I think.
Okay, so it's 44 when he goes into the thing, or 45 maybe when he goes in there. So it's 55, 65, 75, 85, 95, 2005. So that's 60. So almost 70 years. So let's say she's 25, right? So we're talking. So yeah, she would be in her late 80s, early 90s, somewhere in there, depending on how old she is. She can't possibly be under 25. There's no way you can go through that much training and stuff. And well, maybe, but she just didn't look that old or that young.
Actually, when watching this movie and having seen Mission Impossible last year, she doesn't age at all. Opposite, she ages very gracefully.
Yes, she ages very gracefully.
She could literally pick up the role as Peggy Carter to me, and it wouldn't be as if 10 something plus years.
I will say
have
this:
passed
there's
by.
a lot of people that I interact with on the internet, and that I've been on streams with, that agree with me that she is a smoke show.
Mhm.
So,
Drew,
she's
do you,
she's not what they call mid.
No, but and again, naturally beautiful, not like this whole skinny Hollywood blonde hair, removing
Very
people
attractive
fat.
accent.
Like, yeah, she's a natural woman. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap up this conversation. I guess real quick, I think we kind of would all agree that if we could do something different with this film, it would be working, doing more with Red Skull and doing more work in the third act, right?
Correct.
I'd say so. Yeah.
Like, even if we added 10 to 15 minutes to this film, I think focusing a little more on Red Skull, showing us a little more of that, give us the Nazis, and then give us a little bit more fleshed out third act.
Just one scene of true evil, of just why these bastards need to go down. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
Right, like a lab filled with modern warfare zombies. If you know what I'm talking about, when they had all the weird dental stuff attached to their heads.
Yes, you show the eugenics, the monstrosity of the eugenics that the Nazis were taking part in. Just really show one example of that, just to the extreme with the Red Skull, and it's like, okay, yeah, he needs to go down.
Yeah,
yeah, like glass tanks full of people just vaguely bodies floating in goo or whatever, kind of stuff. Yeah.
We are gonna kind of. I think Shield, you and I pretty much answered this, but I just out of curiosity, when you think of this movie, what is the one scene you think of? And I said it earlier. For me, it's Steve jumping on the grenade. For me, that when someone mentions Captain America, the first Avenger, I think of that scene. Nadia, I feel like yours might be a little different.
Oh, Mine, with them walking up to the camp. That's the scene I think of after they rescue all those guys. Also, when Peggy shoots him.
Shoots the shield.
I get it. I shoot the shield. Sorry. Yes. Shoots.
Oh, that's directly after he got caught.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
This one's fun. She's been fitted with electrical relays that allow you to...
What about this one?
No, that's just a prototype.
What's it made of?
Vibranium. It's stronger than steel and a third the weight. It's completely vibration absorbent.
How come it's not a standard issue?
That's the rarest metal on Earth. What you're holding there, that's all we've got.
You quite finished, Mr. Stark? I'm sure the captain has some unfinished business.
What do you think?
Yes, I think it works.
Shield, what is the one scene you think of when
I
you
think the
of this
most
movie?
poignant scene in the film is when he jumps on the grenade. That right there is when he proves that he's the perfect fit or a good fit for Captain America, and also I really like his relationship with Peggy in the show. I think so. She's my second favorite character in the movie.
Yeah. Agreed. Drew, what about you? When you think of Captain America: First Avenger, what is the one scene that kind of pops up for you?
No, I said it before. I agree with Shield and you, Josh. It's the grenade scene because that's the scene that I said it calls back to that 1960s Captain America Marvel action where it said willing to risk death for his country, and he does it right there, and it just shows the character he has, and that exemplifies Cap.
Absolutely.
Well, way to be a mine hive, you three of you.
It's because and deep down we all know we're disposable, and that's what our role is supposed to be.
I'm over here like, yeah, go on, Shield. I know you're about to say it. Man's job is to protect.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
like,
just
we're
being
disposable. And I'm like,
straight up. You know what I
oh
mean?
no,
Like,
I mean it's fair.
Yeah, that's I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just the way it is. So,
But we wouldn't be disposable to Captain America.
No.
Not at all. All right, I meant to give you guys a heads up that I was going to ask you this so you could think about it kind of throughout the process, and I forgot to because I'm a terrible host. But I would like to know what you would rate this movie on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being awful, 10 being great. 5 is average. So if you were to say a 5, you're just middle of the road, not good, not bad. It's just meh. But I'm curious to know where you'd rank this, and keep in mind we're gonna do this with all the films going forward. So whatever you think is top tier MCU, you've got to leave some cushion and some room for everything in between and on the other side of the spectrum. But I will go first. That way I can give you guys a little bit of time to think. And then when you give your rating, you can give kind of just a brief general synopsis of your thoughts on the film as a whole. But for me, as much as I love Captain America, the First Avenger, I would probably rate this about a 6.5 out of 10. I think there's a lot of great moments. I think there's a lot of heart. I think there's a lot of good characterization and themes of what it means to be a hero and to be a good friend, spouse. I think a lot of those themes are there. For me, just the third act just really kills it and knocks it down quite a few tiers for me. So for me, I give this a 6.5 out of 10. And I don't know who wants to go next, but
I give it a 6. Probably a solid 6 out of 10. It's not terrible. There are definitely worse MCU movies out there, but it's not the best. It's not the cream of the crop. Rewatching it, I enjoyed it more so because there's a lot more liberties they could take. This is like pre-Disney kind of 100% hands in. I like the relationship with Cap and Peggy. I wish they would have done a little bit more with the villain, with Red Skull. I'm a villain gal. I always love the villain in things, and I don't feel that Red Skull was very threatening, at least to the mass of putting him up against Captain America. I didn't feel, because and correct me if I'm wrong, in the comics they're pretty on par with putting them against each other, main villain and hero, right?
Oh yeah,
Correct.
like
I
Red
don't feel
Skull's-
that. I
No,
don't feel
Red,
that in the movie.
Red Skull's even been like an Avengers level threat in comics.
Yeah.
So,
I don't feel that in this movie, but maybe they were just kind of throwing it across because they were working towards the next stages of stuff. But yeah, I say a solid 6.
Let me ask you real quick about the Red Skull, Drew. In the comics, it's not only that he's powerful and he's strong, but is he also like more like a mastermind too, right? Like he has all these plans
Yes.
within plans kind of thing.
Yes, and what's funny is that when he's first introduced, he doesn't have the super soldier serum. He is just. It's funny because Hitler sees him. And he says, "Oh my God, those eyes! That his eyes, his face best exemplifies what our nation is." And he just trains him and sees him. Makes him the Red Skull the example based on how his face looked. But it wasn't until later on they gave him the super soldier serum and kind of made him on par physically and mentally with Captain America afterwards. But now they're more or less equals. They're two sides of the same coin, if you will.
Right. And so he doesn't get the physical features of the Red Skull until he takes the serum, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's not until because originally he was just a guy with the red mask. That's all he was. And
he wore a mask before that. Okay,
Yeah.
I thought he was just dude, and then he
No,
took the serum,
no.
and then
No, yeah. Originally, he was just some guy in a mask. He was a hotel clerk that Captain America, that Red Skull saw. No, I'm sorry, that Hitler saw and said, "Yes, you best exemplify what it should be. I see it in your eyes." It's like, okay, that's pretty random. But he just gives him the mask and just becomes a master strategist and everything, and goes from there. But it's cleaner. It makes more sense if he's like the first test example for the super soldier serum didn't work.
Right.
And then it goes to Captain's perfected it now.
Okay.
Drew, what would you rate this on a scale of 1 to 10, and then what were your final thoughts?
No, as soon as you said 6.5, I'm thinking to myself, don't say it. Like, damn it, because I mine's right around there too. And Nadia said it too. I mean, there were some good things about this. There were a couple great things. There's a lot of solid good decisions, but there were some bad decisions made, mostly in the third act. The handling of the Nazis, or just not mentioning them, period. But on the whole, it's just above average. It's not the best we're going to see. It's not the worst we're going to see, but it's better than average, slightly.
Yeah, I would say it's still classified as good, just not great. There's plenty to enjoy here. Shield, what about you? What would you rank this or rate this? And
so I kind of have like a 2-tier rating system.
Okay.
So I don't normally like doing the 1 through 10 thing, but I can do it. I'd give this like a 7, but my real rating system is, would I watch this movie again? And how often would I watch it? Like there's certain movies that I liked that were okay, but if I didn't see it again for 10 years, I'd be all right. This one is probably like a once every 2 years kind of movie for me. I'd be satisfied. Now, there are certain aspects of the movie that I really like, and this might sound corny, but sometimes when I need a little encouragement, I'll watch just like little shorts of the movie or whatever, like clips and stuff. And almost all of it is in the very beginning of it. With jumping on the grenade and those kinds of things, because I think the message that this movie has is probably one of the best messages that you can get out of any Marvel movie, hands down, almost, for my money. Anyway, especially compared to modern MCU stuff. The messages in those are not on par with this message at all.
Right.
And one other thing is, I think that this is just me again, my opinion. I don't have any proof of this or anything, but I think that the image of America and what we stand for, from other people looking into us when they see it, this is what they want to see. They don't want to see all this DI stuff and all this other stuff. This is not what we projected back then. You know what I mean? We were there to help people and bring things to them and things like that. Now, I know that that's not the reality, but that's what we should strive for, And so that's what I think the message should be, because you can't make a good society or a better place or a better country if you don't believe that it can be that way. Sure, you can recognize that it, hey, it's got its issues or its problems or whatever. But if you don't believe that it can be better, or that the values that it has that says we should be better, if you don't believe in any of that stuff, then it's not going to work. So I think this movie projects that you
Mm.
should believe in it. A lot of people say, oh, that's corny and hokey and whatever, but I think maybe that's what we need.
Yep.
You know?
I can agree with that. I can definitely agree with that. Before we wrap things up completely, any final words that you guys want to mention or bring up?
America.
I do want to bring up what kind of Shieldwall was talking about when this came out in 2011. This overseas, it was billed as the first Avenger. That's what it was called. And I remember overseas nations were upset. Like, no, we're coming to see Captain America, not just the first Avenger. And I thought that was very interesting at the time.
And I got that feeling about a lot of different countries. Like, we all have an idea of what a certain country is or whatever. But when I think of like the United Kingdom, I have a certain concept of what that is and what they represent, and the values that they hold. And there are certain things about that country that are positive, and you look at England and or the UK, and you say, this is what they stand for, and this is what and again, I recognize it's not always perfect history or whatever, and not everything was rainbows and unicorns, but the core of those countries, like Canada and Australia, there's a certain thing that I think when I think of it. When I think of Australia, I think of like resilience, not taking any crap from nobody, those kinds of things. And when you see that it's different than what you actually think, that kind of makes you depressed, right? A little bit. And you're like, oh man, this is not. And I think that's how other countries were viewing America with this, specifically what Drew was talking about. It's like, what are they talking about? The first Avenger, which kind of does work, but it should be Captain America. Same with Superman, truth, justice, and the American way. That's what we should represent, not this, other stuff. Just my opinion. But so we all have these different ideas of what other countries are, what their core is. And if what I'm talking about is our positive views on those countries. And when those things are changed, it kind of makes people feel bad about it. So I think that's kind of where this movie went with that, as far as what Drew was referring to.
Yeah, agreed. Well, I do think, again, chose this movie for a number of reasons to start off with this Marvelous Monday series. I do think it's the best introduction into the MCU. I do think it's one of the best films at kind of hitting these themes of what it means to be a hero, what we should strive to be. And Shield, I know you said you'll watch clips sometimes when you kind of need to pick yourself up a little bit, and you said it might be corny. I don't think it's corny at all. And this is a conversation Drew and I have had multiple times on different streams about just comic books in general. And, as adults, why do we read them? Because a lot of people think comics are for kids or they're juvenile or whatever. But I would say back in the day, back when comics were really just firing on all cylinders and you had great creative teams, the reason I loved it is it always inspired me to be better. It always challenged me to be better. And there are aspects of this film that show like, you can be better. So it's one of the reasons I love this movie. It's one of the reasons I revisit this movie as often as I do. And a lot of times I won't even watch the third act. I'll watch pretty much up into a certain point, and then I'll go like fold laundry and let the rest of it play in the background. But yeah. So
Yep. The comics I read made me believe I could be a serial killer, I guess. I read all horror and dark shit.
She reads horror comics.
Yeah, she's murder mysteries and all kinds of other stuff. And then whatever that book club book you were reading.
Yeah, the naughty, the smut book club.
You talked into that one.
What happens in Spicy Book Club stays in
stays in Spicy Book Club. But if you want to find out, you can tune in
to Vex's channel.
To Vex's channel, yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, if you enjoyed watching our discussion on Captain America: The First Avenger, one, thank you for coming. Two, there's going to be a follow-up series of videos that happen the next couple of Mondays throughout the month, where I'll be partnering with Joe Corallo and Eric Breen, and we will be taking some deep dives into the books that help inspired this film. So a lot of good stuff there. So come check it out. It's going to be a series called Print Screen. And then we're going to be back. You know, the Avengers have assembled. We are here. We are your YouTube Avengers. We will be back next month, maybe with some extra guests. We will have to wait and see. And we're going to kind of throw a little curveball at you, because the movie we're going to discuss isn't technically MCU, but it might as well should be, because we're going to be diving into X-Men First Class. I'm excited. I'm excited to have these guys back, and I think we're going to have a good time. So thanks for tuning in.
Get the fuck